They called him the Unconquered, the king who crushed armies with a word, who made nobles crawl just by entering a room. Draven Kael had never lost. Not a battle, not a negotiation, not a single damn thing that mattered. Until the day his strategists brought him a bride to seal the northern territories, and she walked into his throne room like she owned it. No curtsy, no trembling, just those cold gray eyes meeting his without flinching. That's when the Alpha King made his first real mistake. He thought he could control her. Stay until the end to see how a woman with no name destroys a kingdom built on fear. Drop a comment with your city below. Let's see where everyone's watching from. The throne room stank of old power and fresh blood. Draven Kael didn't look up when the doors groaned open. He was reading a report about grain shipments from the eastern provinces, his jaw working methodically on a problem that required violence to solve. 3 lords had been skimming profits. By nightfall, there would be 2 fewer lords and a very motivated third. Your Majesty, Lord Castellan's voice echoed across the black marble. The bride has arrived. Draven's eyes didn't leave the parchment. Send her to the West Wing. Assign her a handler. I'll see her when it's convenient. She's here, sire. In the throne room. Now Draven looked up. The girl, woman, he corrected himself, though she couldn't be more than 25, stood at the far end of the hall between 2 of his personal guard. She should have looked small in that massive space, dwarfed by the vaulted ceiling and the banners of conquered territories hanging like corpses from the rafters. She didn't. Her clothes were wrong. Not the silk and jewels he'd expected from the northern territories, but plain travel leathers worn soft at the knees and elbows. Her dark hair was pulled back in a simple braid, no ornaments, no attempt at beauty. And her face? She was staring directly at him, not at the floor, not at the middle distance in that careful way courtiers learn to avoid his gaze while still appearing attentive. Right at him, like she was taking his measure and finding the results moderately interesting at best. Draven set down the parchment with deliberate care. Name. Nyra Voss. Her voice carried across the stone without shouting, clear, unimpressed. You were supposed to arrive yesterday. The northern pass was blocked. Snow. I don't recall asking for an explanation. Something flickered across her face. Not fear. Amusement, maybe? Or the kind of tired patience you'd give a child asking stupid questions. Then I don't recall offering one. You asked why I was late. I answered. The throne room went so quiet, Draven could hear Lord Castellan's strangled breathing 20 feet away. His guards' hands moved to their sword hilts, waiting for the order. Draven leaned forward. Do you know who I am? Draven Kael, Alpha King of the 7 Territories. Undefeated in battle, unchallengeable in law, and apparently very concerned about punctuality. She cocked her head. Did I miss anything? You missed the part where people don't speak to me like that and keep their tongues. Then I guess we're about to find out how literally you meant that. She folded her arms. Are we done with the intimidation routine, or should I tremble a bit first? I can manage a good tremble if it moves things along. Lord Castellan made a noise like a dying animal. Draven stood. He was a tall man, built like violence and victory, and when he descended the 7 steps from his throne, seasoned warriors had been known to piss themselves. This girl, this Nyra Voss, watched him approach with the same expression you'd give mildly interesting weather. He stopped 2 feet from her, close enough to smell the road dust and something else, something like steel left in rain. You think this is a game? I think this is a political arrangement I didn't ask for, married to a man I've never met, in a palace that probably has more rules than it does actual people. She met his eyes. And I think you're trying very hard to scare me because that's what works on everyone else. How am I doing so far? His hand was around her throat before he decided to move. Not choking. Not yet. Just enough pressure to feel her pulse jackrabbiting against his palm, to remind her that he could end this conversation with a single flex of his fingers. Her guards hadn't even twitched. They knew better. Nyra didn't struggle. She just looked at him with those 2 calm gray eyes and waited. You understand nothing, Draven said softly, about this place, about what I am, about what happens to people who think defiance makes them interesting. You're right. Her voice was steady despite the hand on her throat. I don't understand why a king who supposedly has everything would need to prove it by choking a woman half his size in front of his entire court. That does seem like something I'm missing. He should have tightened his grip, should have made an example that would echo through every corner of this palace until the stones themselves learned fear. Instead, He found himself studying her face, looking for the crack, the moment when survival instinct would override whatever suicidal pride kept her spine straight. It didn't come. Draven released her and stepped back. Take her to the bridal wing. No visitors, no correspondence. Someone teach her how to curtsy before I see her again.
Will that be soon? Nira rubbed her throat absently. Or do you need more time to think of better threats? Because that one was pretty standard. I've heard worse from mercenaries with half your vocabulary. Get her out of my sight. The guards moved in, but she was already turning, heading for the doors like she'd made the decision herself. At the threshold, she paused and looked back over her shoulder. For what it's worth, she said, I didn't want this either, but I'm here now, and I don't scare easy. So we can keep playing this game where you threaten, and I don't flinch, or we can skip to whatever comes next. Your choice, Your Majesty. Then she was gone, and Draven was alone with his court and the rapidly spreading realization that he'd just made a catastrophic miscalculation. Lord Castellan approached carefully, like someone navigating a minefield. Sire, the Northern Territories sent her specifically. Lord Thane's recommendation. She's supposed to be a spy. Draven's voice was flat. Or an assassin. Or both? My sources say she's neither. She's nobody. Thane found her working in one of his border outposts. No family. No history. He thought he'd insult me by sending a commoner instead of one of his precious daughters. Draven returned to his throne, every movement controlled fury. And she's supposed to what? Play the humble peasant so grateful for her elevation that she spreads her legs and breathes me in air without asking questions? I believe that was the general idea, yes. Draven laughed, but there was nothing warm in it. Then Thane is even stupider than I thought. That woman isn't humble, she isn't grateful, and she sure as hell isn't playing. What would you have me do? Watch her. Every hour, every conversation. I want to know what she eats, what she reads, who she talks to. If she's an assassin, she'll slip eventually. And if she's not, he trailed off, remembering those gray eyes, the absolute absence of fear. If she's not, then we have a different problem. The bridal wing was a gilded cage. Nyra cataloged the exits first. 2 doors, 1 window with a 20-foot drop to flagstone. Then the security. 2 guards outside, probably more in the corridor beyond. The room itself was obscene, all silk and gold and furniture that cost more than most people earned in a lifetime. A wedding dress hung in the corner like a ghost, white and pristine and utterly alien. She sat on the edge of the bed and let herself shake, not from fear of Draven Kale. She'd meant what she said. She'd faced worse than entitled kings with rage problems. But from the enormity of what she'd just walked into, the tightrope she'd have to walk between defiance and destruction. The door opened. A woman entered, older, severe, dressed in the high-necked gray that marked palace authority. Her eyes took in Nyra with the warm enthusiasm of a butcher examining spoiled meat. I am Mistress Caron. I train brides. Congratulations on your career choice. The woman's face didn't flicker. Stand up. Let me see you. Nyra stood because it cost nothing and she needed information. Mistress Karen circled her like a predator, making small disapproving noises. You slouch. Your hands are too rough. You smell like horses and road dirt. She stopped in front of Nyra. Do you have any accomplishments? Needlework? Music? Languages? I can kill a man in 6 different ways with my bare hands. Speak 4 languages, 3 of them curse words. And I once rode 70 miles in a day with a broken rib. Nyra smiled without humor. How's your needlework? The king will discard you within a month. Probably. In the meantime, are you going to teach me to curtsy, or should I just wing it? Something shifted in Karen's expression. Not warmth, but a kind of grim recognition. You think defiance makes you special. It doesn't. The palace is full of women who tried to be interesting. Most of them are dead. The lucky ones are just forgotten. What makes you think I want to be remembered? Everyone who comes here wants something. Power, security, revenge. Karen moved to the window, her back to Nyra. The ones who want nothing are the most dangerous. They have nothing to lose. And which one are you? The question hung in the air. When Caron turned back, her face was carved from ice. I am the one who survives by making sure girls like you don't burn down the kingdom before the king gets bored and sends you away. Now, let's begin with the basics. When the king enters a room, you don't care. Karen's jaw tightened. Excuse me? I didn't stutter. I don't care about your rules, your protocols, your careful little dance of Who bows to whom? Naira walked to the wedding dress, touched the silk. This whole thing is a farce. Draven Kyle needs the Northern Territories consolidated. I'm the price Thane paid to make that happen. We both know I wasn't chosen for my charm. Then why are you here?
The question cut closer than Karen probably intended. Naira's fingers tightened on the silk. Because sometimes you don't get choices. You get directions, and you walk them, and you figure out what matters when you get there. And what matters to you? Staying alive, staying free. In that order. Karen studied her for a long moment. You won't be able to do both. Not here. The king takes everything he touches and shapes it to his will. Your freedom will be the first thing he crushes, and your life will follow shortly after if you keep challenging him. Then I guess I'll have to be more interesting than crushing. You think you're the first to try that? Karen's laugh was bitter. 3 years ago, a duchess from the eastern provinces made the same calculation. Beautiful, educated, clever. She lasted 6 months before the king had her exiled to a monastery for willful disobedience, and she had actual training, actual power. You have nothing.
Good. Nothing means no expectations. Nira released the dress. Tell me something, Mistress Karen. Why do you stay? You're clearly not stupid. You see how this place works. Why not leave? Because there's nowhere else to go. The king owns everything. The territories, the roads, the very air we breathe. You can run, but you'll always be running in his shadow. She moved to the door. Your first lesson is at dawn. Try to sleep. Tomorrow will be worse. After she left, Naira stood alone in the golden cage and thought about shadows. Draven didn't sleep that night. He paced his private chambers, drinking wine that tasted like ash and thinking about the girl with no fear. His advisors had compiled a dossier, thin, barely 2 pages. Nira Voss, orphan. Worked as a guard on Thane's northern border for 3 years. No family, no friends, no history before that. Which meant everything before 3 years ago was a lie. People didn't appear from nowhere. They ran from something, or they were hidden, or they were erased. And a woman who could stand in front of the Alpha King and make jokes about his intimidation tactics wasn't some random border guard who got lucky. His head of intelligence, Soren, appeared at midnight like a ghost with news. Couldn't wait until morning? Draven didn't look up from the dossier. You wanted information on Voss. I found something. Soren dropped a second file on the desk. Or rather, I found nothing. And nothing is always something. Draven flipped it open. More emptiness. No records before her appearance in the north, no birth certificate, no family tree, just a void where a person should be. She's a ghost, Soren said. Professional. The kind of erasure you only get from Crown Intelligence or... He hesitated. Or? The Resistance. The word landed like a blade. The Resistance. The scattered remnants of the old kingdoms. The ones who'd refused to bend knee when Draven unified the territories by force. Most were dead. Some were in prison. The rest were ghosts, saboteurs, living weapons who'd spent the last decade trying to destabilize everything he'd built. You think Thane sent me an assassin. I think Thane sent you a problem disguised as a bride. Whether she's resistance or something else, she's not what she appears. Draven thought about her eyes, that absolute calm. If she's an assassin, she's terrible at it. She's drawn every eye in the palace. Unless that's the point. Hide in plain sight. Be so openly defiant that we spend all our time watching her behavior and miss the knife until it's in your back. Or she's exactly what she appears to be, a survivor who learned not to show fear because fear gets you killed. Soren gave him a look. Since when do you give people the benefit of the doubt? Since never. Which is why you're going to dig deeper. I want to know everything, where she came from, who trained her, what she's really doing here, and I want guards on her at all times. If she sneezes, I want to know about it. After Soren left, Draven returned to pacing. He should have her executed, or at least imprisoned until the truth came out. It's what he would have done yesterday, before gray eyes and a voice like steel wrapped in silk. Instead, he found himself thinking about what she'd said. Why would a king who has everything need to prove it? Because having everything wasn't the same as keeping everything, because power was a performance as much as a fact, and the moment you stopped performing, someone would test whether the power was real. But she hadn't tested him. She'd just refused to play the game at all. And that, Draven realized, was far more dangerous than any knife. Kote. Dawn came with a knock that sounded like judgment.
Naira dressed in the clothes they'd left her, still too fine, still too soft, and followed Mistress Karen through corridors that twisted like serpents. The palace was a labyrinth designed to confuse, to remind you that you needed guidance to navigate power. The training room was sparse. No furniture, just space and light, and Karen standing in the center like an executioner. "We'll start with posture," she said. They didn't. They started with Karen backhanding her across the face. Naira tasted blood before she'd processed the movement. She stumbled back, hand going to her split lip, instinct screaming at her to fight back. "Rule 1, Karen said calmly. "In this palace, you will be struck. You will be insulted. You will be tested every single day. How you respond determines whether you live or die." She waited. "Now, stand up straight. Try again." Naira straightened, wiped the blood from her mouth. "You could have just asked." Asked isn't how power works here. Power is taken, or it's demonstrated, or it's beaten into you until you understand it's not negotiable. Karen moved closer. "You embarrassed the king yesterday, in front of his entire court. Do you understand what that means? That he has a fragile ego?" The second slap came faster. Naira blocked it this time, pure reflex, and caught Karen's wrist an inch from her face. They stood frozen. Karen's eyes widened fractionally. "Don't," Naira said quietly. "I'll take a lot. I'll learn your stupid rules and curtsy and smile, but don't hit me again." "Or what?" "Or you'll find out what I am when I stop being polite." Karen pulled her wrist free. For a long moment, she just stared. Then, incredibly, she smiled. "There. That's the first honest thing you've said since you arrived." "What?" The frightened girl act, the confusion, the defiance that's just a little too perfect. Karen circled her. "You've been playing a role since you walked through those doors. But just now, when you caught my hand, I saw the real you. Trained, dangerous, not some random border guard who got lucky." Naira's blood went cold. "I don't know what you're... Don't insult me. I've trained queens and killers, and you're not the first to walk in here wearing the wrong skin." Karen stopped directly in front of her. "So here's how this works. You keep your secrets, I'll keep mine. But if you're planning to kill the king, do it clean, and make sure I'm not in the room. I've survived 3 different courts, and I'm not dying for your cause." "I'm not planning to kill anyone." "Then what are you planning?" The honest answer, "I'm planning to survive," felt too raw to say out loud. Instead, Naira met Karen's eyes. "I'm planning to make it through tomorrow, and then the day after, and every day until I figure out what this place wants from me. It wants you to disappear, become invisible, be the perfect, pliable queen who produces heirs and smiles at ceremonies and never ever challenges the king's authority." Karen's voice dropped. "Can you do that?" "No." "Then you're going to die here, and probably take a lot of other people with you when you do." The word should have scared her. Instead, Naira felt something click into place, like a puzzle piece finding its home. "Good to know where I stand." "You stand nowhere. You're a ghost marrying a king who collects ghosts and turns them into weapons or graves." Karen moved to the door. "First official event is tonight. State dinner. Every noble in the capital will be there, watching you, judging you, deciding whether you're weak enough to exploit. Dress is in your room. Try not to embarrass yourself." "What if I embarrass the king instead?" Karen paused at the threshold. "Then I'd recommend having your affairs in order. He doesn't forgive twice." The dress was a weapon disguised as fashion. Naira stared at it hanging in her room, deep crimson, cut to display and constrict in equal measure, designed to make her look beautiful and helpless, a prize to be admired rather than a person to be reckoned with. She put it on because the fight wasn't about clothes. The girl who'd helped her dress, silent, terrified, couldn't have been more than 16, laced the back so tight Naira could barely breathe. When she tried to loosen it, the girl's hands shook. "It has to be this way," she whispered. "His Majesty preferences aren't requirements. In this palace, they are." Naira looked at the girl's face, the kind of pretty that power devoured without thinking, and saw herself 5 years ago, before the northern border, before she'd learned that survival meant choosing which battles to fight. "What's your name?" "Lyra, miss." "Not miss. Naira. And Lyra, I need you to understand something." She turned to face the girl. "I'm about to walk into a room full of people who want me to fail. Most of them will try to be subtle about it. Some won't. And I'm going to fail some of their tests. But not because I don't know the rules. Because I'm choosing which rules matter. You're going to get hurt, Lyra said softly. Probably, but I'm going to get hurt being myself, not pretending to be someone safe enough to ignore. Nira touched the girl's shoulder. You don't have to be brave, but don't let them convince you that fear is the same as wisdom. Lyra's eyes filled with tears she didn't let fall. I'll try. Mzukeseka. The state dining hall was designed to make you feel small. Vaulted ceilings that disappeared into shadow. A table long enough to seat 50. Candles that cost more than houses. And at the head of it all, Draven Kyle, dressed in black and silver like a knife forged from midnight. He didn't look at Naira when she entered. Everyone else did. Whispers followed her to the seat beside the king. Too close, too intimate, too obvious. She could feel their eyes taking inventory, the dress, the posture, the way she held her wine glass like she might use it as a weapon. You're late, Draven said without looking at her. You didn't specify a time. When the king summons, you arrive early. When someone summons me without basic information, I arrive when it's convenient. She sipped the wine. This is excellent, by the way. What vintage? His jaw tightened. You're trying to provoke me. I'm trying to drink wine and survive dinner. If that provokes you, the problem isn't me. A woman 3 seats down laughed, quickly smothered, but there. Lady Corvina, according to the seating chart Lyra had shown her. Duchess of something, survivor of something else. Draven finally looked at her. You understand that every person in this room is evaluating you, deciding whether you're valuable, dangerous, or disposable. And which one are you hoping I'll be? I'm hoping you'll be smart enough to keep your mouth shut and let them draw their own conclusions. Too late. I opened my mouth, and now everyone knows I have opinions. Shocking development for a woman, I know. His hand slammed the table. Not loud, just enough force to rattle silverware and silence conversation. You are here as a courtesy to the Northern Territories. Do not mistake that courtesy for permission to mock me in front of my court. Naira set down her wine glass with exaggerated care. I'm not mocking you, Your Majesty. I'm simply existing in a way you find inconvenient. If my presence offends you, feel free to send me back north. I'm sure Lord Thane would be happy to negotiate a different arrangement. Thane sent you because he knew it would irritate me. Or because I was the only person desperate enough to accept. She leaned closer, voice dropping. You want honesty? Here it is. I don't want to be here. I don't want this marriage. I don't want any of this. But I'm here, and I'll play the part well enough to satisfy the politics. Just don't expect me to pretend I'm grateful for the privilege. Draven's eyes were black ice. You have no idea what you're risking. You're right, I don't. But I do know that men who threaten when they should negotiate are usually scared of something. What scares you, Draven Kale? That I won't break? Or that I already am broken, and there's nothing left for you to shape? The question hung between them like a blade. Then Draven stood, and the entire hall fell silent. Tomorrow, he said, voice carrying to every corner, my bride and I will tour the capital. Let the people see what the North has sent us. His smile was all teeth. Let's hope she's more impressive in daylight. He left without another word, and Nira sat alone at the head of the table with 40 pairs of eyes weighing her like meat. Lady Corvina was the first to move. She glided down the table, took Draven's abandoned seat, and poured herself wine from his glass. That was either very brave or very stupid, she said. Probably both. Good. Brave and stupid are the only interesting kinds of people. Corvina was older, maybe 40, with the kind of face that had seen empires rise and hadn't been impressed. Tell me, Naira Voss, what's your game? Survival. Everyone's game is survival. What's your method? Not dying. Corvina laughed, genuine this time. I like you. You're either exactly what you appear to be, or you're the best liar I've met in 20 years. Either way, you've just painted a target on your back. There was already a target. I'm just making sure people aim for the right reasons. And what are the right reasons? Nira looked at the woman. Really looked. Saw intelligence, calculation, and something else. Curiosity, maybe. Or recognition. You tell me. You're the one who survived here. What's the secret? There is no secret, just decisions. Corvina leaned back. You decide every day whether to bend or break. The ones who bend too much lose themselves. The ones who break too hard lose their lives. The trick is knowing which fights matter. And tonight, did this fight matter? That depends. Are you trying to survive the week or the year? Both, ideally. Then tonight was a mistake. You made the king look weak in front of his court. He'll retaliate, because that's what power does when it's challenged. She stood, smoothing her dress. But it was also necessary, because if you'd backed down, they would have known you were weak, and weak doesn't last here either. So congratulations. You've successfully made it impossible to predict whether you'll survive or implode spectacularly. That's oddly comforting. It shouldn't be. Unpredictability gets you killed almost as fast as weakness.
Corvina moved toward the door, then paused. One more thing. The king's tour tomorrow? It's not for the people. It's for you. He's going to show you exactly how much power he has, how little you matter, and what happens to people who forget their place. Try to look appropriately intimidated. What if I can't fake it? Then I hope you're good at running.
Naira didn't sleep. She stood at her window and watched the capital spread below like a living map. Lights. Movement. Life happening in the shadow of the palace, indifferent to the games played in golden halls. Somewhere out there, people were falling in love, raising children, building futures that didn't depend on which king sat on which throne. And here she was, trapped in a cage of politics and power, betting her life on the gamble that defiance might be worth more than compliance. The door opened without knocking. Draven stood in the doorway, still dressed, still furious. "Get out," Nira said without turning. "This is my palace. I go where I please." "Then please yourself by leaving." He crossed the room in 4 strides and spun her to face him. His hand gripped her arm, not gentle, not brutal, just firm enough to make a point. "Do you have a death wish?" His voice was low, dangerous. "Or are you just too stupid to understand what you're doing? I understand perfectly. You're angry because I won't perform the way you expected. And instead of asking yourself why your expectations might be wrong, you're here trying to scare me into compliance. I don't need to scare you. I own you. The moment you accepted this arrangement, you became property of the crown. People aren't property. Tell that to every person in this kingdom. They're all property. The only difference is whether they know it." He released her arm. "You think you're special because you don't fear me. You're not. You're just too inexperienced to understand what fear looks like when it's wearing your face." Nira's laugh was sharp. "You want to know what I'm afraid of? Becoming like you. So obsessed with control that you can't tell the difference between power and paranoia. So alone that threatening a woman in her bedroom counts as meaningful interaction." The slap she expected didn't come. Instead, Draven went very still, and somehow that was worse. "Tomorrow," he said quietly, "you will smile. You will wave. You will play the grateful bride who understands how fortunate she is. And if you make me look like a fool again, I will send you somewhere so remote you'll forget what sunlight feels like. Are we clear?" "Crystal." He walked to the door, stopped with his hand on the frame. "You want to know what scares me, Nira Voss? Nothing about you scares me. You're a puzzle I'll solve, a problem I'll fix, and then you'll be exactly like everyone else. Useful or gone." After he left, Nira stood in the silence and thought about tomorrow. About tours and crowds, and the performance of power. About how a king who claimed to fear nothing had just spent 10 minutes trying to convince her of that fact. And about what it meant that she still wasn't afraid. Dawn broke like a threat. Naira dressed in the clothes they'd left, white and gold, virginal and expensive, and tried not to think about what came next. The palace was already alive with preparation, servants rushing through halls, guards taking positions. Lyra appeared with breakfast Naira couldn't eat. "The carriage leaves in an hour," the girl said softly. "Mistress Karen wants to see you first. Something about proper behavior." Of course she did. Karen was waiting in the same training room, but this time she wasn't alone. 3 other women stood with her, each one precisely calibrated to represent a different kind of power. Young, old, beautiful, severe. A gallery of what survival looked like. "These are former brides," Karen said without preamble. "They've agreed to share their wisdom. I suggest you listen." The youngest spoke first. "Don't look the crowd in the eye. They'll interpret it as either arrogance or invitation, and both get you hurt." The oldest, "Never show fear. The moment they smell it, they'll test you, and the tests here don't end until you're broken or dead." The beautiful one, with scars hidden under powder. "The king will touch you during the tour. Let him. It's part of the performance." And finally, the severe woman, with eyes like winter. "He's going to try to break you today. Make you small in front of his people. The question is whether you'll let him."
Nira looked at them, these survivors, these women who'd bent and broken and somehow kept breathing. What would you do if you were me? Silence. Then the severe one smiled. I'd burn the whole thing down and walk through the ashes. But I'm not you, and I didn't have the spine for it when I had the chance. So I'll say this instead. Whatever you decide it for yourself. Not because you're brave, not because you're scared, because it's what you can live with when this is over. Karen dismissed them with a gesture. When they were alone, she moved to the window. You remind me of someone, she said. A girl who came here 12 years ago. Beautiful, smart, too clever for her own good. She lasted 3 months before the king had her executed for treason. What did she do? She told the truth at the wrong time to the wrong person. And the truth, in this palace, is the most dangerous weapon there is. Naira joined her at the window. Below, the capital was waking, oblivious to the theater about to unfold. Then, I guess I better make sure I'm lying. Karen's laugh was hollow. The sad thing is, I can't tell if you are. The carriage was a cage made of gold and glass. Draven was already inside when Naira entered, dressed in ceremonial armor that made him look like war personified. He didn't acknowledge her, just stared straight ahead as the carriage lurched into motion. They rode in silence through the palace gates, into streets lined with people who'd been ordered to cheer. The noise was deafening, enthusiastic in the way that mandatory enthusiasm always is, too perfect, too synchronized, too aware that failure to perform had consequences. Wave, Draven said without looking at her. Naira waved. Smile. She smiled. See how easy it is when you follow instructions? Is that what this is? Instructions? I thought it was a performance. His jaw tightened. Everything is a performance. The question is whether you're performing loyalty or rebellion. I'm performing survival. The carriage turned into the main square, where a platform had been erected. Draven exited first, and the crowd's roar intensified. He raised one hand, and silence fell like a hammer. Nira stepped down after him, and she felt it immediately. The weight of thousands of eyes, measuring, judging, deciding whether she was worthy of their king. Draven took her hand. Not gently, like claiming property. My people, he said, voice carrying across the square. I present to you my bride, a gift from the Northern Territories, a symbol of our unity and strength. Naira's skin crawled. The speech continued, words about power and prosperity and the bright future they would build together. All lies. Beautiful, necessary lies that kept the machine running. Then Draven turned to her. Tell them how honored you are. It was a test. A trap. Every woman on that platform would have lowered her eyes and delivered a sweet, grateful speech about being blessed to serve such a magnificent king. Naira looked at the crowd instead, really looked, past the mandatory enthusiasm to the faces beneath, tired, hungry, afraid. People who worked themselves to death to pay taxes that funded golden carriages and political marriages they had no stake in. I'm not honored, she said. The square went silent. Draven's hand tightened on hers, crushing. A warning. Naira continued anyway. I'm terrified. I'm confused. I don't understand half the rules I'm supposed to follow, and I'm pretty sure I've broken the other half without realizing it. I'm a stranger in a strange place, and honestly, I have no idea what I'm doing. Someone in the crowd laughed, quickly, stifled. But there. But, Naira said, I'm here, and I'm trying, and maybe that's all any of us can do. Show up, try our best, and hope we don't burn everything down by accident. The silence stretched. Then, incredibly, applause. Not the orchestrated kind. Real, scattered, uncertain, but growing. Draven released her hand and leaned close, his breath hot against her ear. You just made the worst mistake of your life. Add it to the list. They returned to the carriage in silence, and Naira knew, whatever came next, there was no going back from this moment. The tour continued for hours. More speeches, more smiles, more performances of power and unity. And through it all, Draven's fury was a living thing beside her, controlled only by the presence of witnesses. When they finally returned to the palace, he didn't speak, just walked away, leaving her standing in the courtyard like forgotten baggage. Lady Corvina appeared from nowhere, her expression unreadable. Well, she said, you've certainly made an impression. Good or bad? Both. Which means you're either about to become the most interesting person in this palace, or the most dead. She studied Nira's face. The people loved it, you know, that speech, the honesty. They're not used to anyone admitting weakness, especially not someone standing next to the king. He's going to punish me for it. Oh, absolutely. The question is how? Corvina started walking and Nira fell into step beside her. There's a dinner tonight, smaller, just the inner court. He'll make his move then. My advice? Don't go. Not going seems like it would make things worse.
Can't make things worse if you're already at the bottom. She stopped at a branching corridor. But if you do go, remember this. The king doesn't know how to lose. He's never had to learn. So when you win, and you did win today, whether you realize it or not, he'll do whatever it takes to regain control, even if it destroys you both.
Then I guess I better figure out how to make destruction look like victory. Corvina's smile was sad. Now you're starting to understand how this place works.
The dinner was an ambush. Nira knew it the moment she entered the private dining room and saw the faces. Draven at the head, Lord Castellan to his right, Soren the spymaster to his left, and across from her 3 men she didn't recognize but whose military bearing and cold eyes told her everything she needed to know. Generals. The kind who won wars and then hunted ghosts. Sit, Draven said. Nira sat. The meal began in silence, course after course, each more elaborate than the last, each one tasting like ash in her mouth. The generals watched her like hawks studying prey, and she knew this wasn't dinner. This was an interrogation disguised as hospitality. Finally, the eldest general spoke. Tell me, Miss Voss, where did you learn to speak to crowds like that? I didn't learn. I just said what I was thinking. Interesting. Most people who just say what they're thinking end up dead or exiled. Yet you seem remarkably comfortable with both options. I'm comfortable with honesty. Whether other people are is their problem. The second general leaned forward. Your records show you worked as a border guard. Standard position, minimal training, yet your speech today showed tactical awareness of crowd dynamics and political messaging. Care to explain that discrepancy? Trap. The word echoed in Nira's head. They were building a case, assembling evidence, connecting dots that would lead to a conclusion she couldn't afford. I've been around, watched how power works. You don't need formal training to understand that people respond to authenticity. Or, the third general said softly, you had training we can't find records of. Training that taught you how to influence, how to manipulate, how to destabilize authority while appearing harmless. Draven set down his wine. General Thorne makes an excellent point. Your background is remarkably empty. No family, no history, just 3 years working for Lord Thane, who conveniently sent you here as a bride. One might think you were designed for this purpose. Designed? Nira's laugh was sharp. I'm not some kind of weapon. I'm just a woman who got caught in politics she didn't ask for. Then you won't mind answering some questions. General Thorne pulled out a folder. 3 years ago, there was an incident at the northern border. A patrol was ambushed, 7 guards killed, and a prisoner escaped. The prisoner was never found, but witnesses described a woman matching your description. Nira's blood went cold. I wasn't... Coincidentally, that's exactly when you appeared in Thane's service. No background check, no verification, just a convenient story about being a refugee from the border skirmishes. He smiled without warmth. You see my concern. I see paranoia disguised as diligence. Careful, Draven's voice cut through the room. These men are tasked with protecting the kingdom. If they suspect you're a threat, I'm inclined to trust their judgment. Even if their judgment is based on coincidence and speculation, even then. Because, in my experience, coincidences don't exist, just patterns we haven't recognized yet. The trap was closing. Nira could feel it, the walls moving in, options disappearing. She could deny everything, but denial looked like guilt when they already wanted her guilty. She could confess to being at the border, but that opened questions she couldn't answer without revealing things that would get her killed. So she did the only thing she could think of. She told a truth that sounded like a lie. You want to know who I am? I'm nobody. I'm the kind of person who falls through the cracks of your perfect system and learns to survive on the edges. I've stolen. I've lied. I've done things I'm not proud of because the alternative was death or worse. And yeah, maybe I was at that border 3 years ago. Maybe I saw things I shouldn't have and ran instead of reporting them like a good citizen. But that doesn't make me a spy. It makes me human. Silence. Then General Thorne laughed. An admission of criminal activity. How refreshing. Not an admission. Just acknowledgement that your perfect kingdom isn't perfect for everyone. Some of us have to scramble for scraps while people like you decide who deserves to exist. Draven stood. The room tensed like a drawn bowstring. Leave us." The generals exchanged looks but obeyed. When the door closed, Naira and Draven were alone with the weight of everything unsaid. "You're hiding something," he said quietly. "Everyone's hiding something. The question is whether it matters. It matters if it threatens my kingdom. Your kingdom." Nira stood too, facing him across the table. "Not our kingdom. Not the people's kingdom. Yours. That's what this is really about, isn't it? Not security, not truth. Just making sure nothing threatens your control. Control is what keeps chaos from devouring everything. You think you can just speak truth and expect the world to reorganize itself around your honesty. That's not how power works. Then how does it work?" He moved around the table, predatory and precise. "Power works through certainty. I am certain in my strength. My generals are certain in their loyalty. And everyone else is certain that challenging me ends badly. You introduce uncertainty, doubt, the possibility that rules can be broken without consequence. And that uncertainty spreads like disease until suddenly my certain kingdom is full of people wondering if they can get away with being honest too. Would that be so terrible? Yes. The word was absolute. Because the moment they start being honest is the moment they start questioning. And questioning leads to rebellion. And rebellion leads to war. I've spent 15 years building a peace that's held by fear and strength. I won't let one woman with a death wish tear it down. Then kill me. Nira spread her arms. Right here, right now, solve your problem the way you solve every problem, with violence and certainty. His hand was on her throat before she could blink. Not choking. Just there. A reminder of how easy it would be. But his eyes, there was something besides fury in them. Something that looked like recognition or maybe confusion. "Why aren't you afraid?" The question was barely a whisper. "Because fear doesn't change anything. You'll either kill me or you won't. My terror doesn't factor into that equation. Everyone can be broken. It's just a matter of finding the right leverage. Then I guess you better start looking." He released her and stepped back, and for the first time since she'd arrived, Naira saw something that might have been doubt cross his face. "Tomorrow," he said, "you'll meet with my advisors. They'll ask more questions, give better answers, or I won't be able to protect you from what comes next." "I don't need your protection. You have it anyway. Because despite everything, despite the suspicion, and the speeches, and the God's damn defiance," he trailed off, jaw working, "you're the first interesting thing to happen in this palace in years, and I'm not ready to let that go yet." Then he left, and Nira stood alone in a room that smelled like wine and warfare, wondering if she'd just won something or lost everything. That night, Lyra came to help her undress. The girl's hands shook worse than usual, and when Naira caught her wrist, she found it marked with fresh bruises. "Who did this?" "It doesn't matter." "It matters. Tell me." Lyra's eyes filled with tears. "They're saying you're dangerous, that you're going to get people killed. And they're right, because now everyone's watching, and anyone who helps you becomes a target too. Then stop helping me." "I can't. You're the only person who's treated me like a human being since I came here." The tears spilled over. "But they're right. You are dangerous. Not because you want to hurt anyone, but because you make people think they can be brave. And brave gets you killed in this place." Nira pulled the girl into a hug, felt her shake with silent sobs. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to put you at risk." "I know, but that doesn't make it better." Lyra pulled away, wiping her eyes. "Please. Tomorrow, when they question you, just give them what they want. Lie if you have to. Pretend if you must. Just survive long enough for this to blow over. And if it doesn't blow over, then at least you'll have tried." After Lyra left, Naira sat in the darkness and thought about bravery, about the cost of honesty in a kingdom built on lies, about how many people she'd put at risk just by refusing to play a game whose rules were written in other people's blood. The knock at her door came just before midnight. Nira opened it to find Lady Corvina, dressed for travel, a hooded cloak hiding most of her face. "We need to talk," she said. Somewhere they're not listening. They walked through passages Nira didn't know existed, down into depths where the palace stopped pretending to be beautiful and became what it really was, a fortress built on bones and bad decisions. Finally, in a room that smelled like dust and secrets, Corvina turned to face her. "You have to leave. Tonight. I can get you out through the old tunnels. By dawn, you'll be miles away, and by the time they realize you're gone, you'll be someone else somewhere else." "Why are you helping me?" Because I've watched too many bright, brave people get snuffed out by this place. And because you remind me of what I used to be before I learned that survival meant becoming invisible. She pulled back her hood, and in the dim light, Naira saw the scars that powder usually hid. I tried to change things once, spoke truth to power. It cost me everything but my life. Don't make my mistake. What if running is the mistake? Then you'll die knowing you tried, but at least you'll die free. Nira thought about Lyra's bruises, about the generals circling like sharks, about Draven's hand on her throat, and the certainty that tomorrow would bring worse. But she also thought about the faces in the crowd, the scattered applause, the brief moment when honesty had felt like victory. I can't, she said finally. Why not? Because I'm tired of running. Because every time I've run from something, I've just found new things to run from. And because... She hesitated. Because something's happening here. Something bigger than me surviving or dying, and I want to see what it is. Corvina's face was carved from disappointment. Then you're a fool. Probably, but I'm a fool who's staying. Then at least let me give you this. She pulled out a small knife, the blade dark and wicked. It's untraceable. No markings. If you need to defend yourself, use it and get rid of it immediately. And if they corner you, if there's no way out... She pressed the knife into Naira's hand. Make sure they remember you were here. After Corvina left, Naira stood alone in the secret room and felt the weight of the knife in her palm. Not a weapon. A promise that she wouldn't go quietly into whatever darkness this place had planned. And as she made her way back through the hidden passages to her golden cage, Naira made a decision. Tomorrow, when the advisors came with their questions and their traps, she wouldn't give them the answers they wanted. She'd give them the truth. Not the safe truth, not the calculated truth, but the real, messy, dangerous truth about who she was and why she was here. Because if she was going to burn, she might as well burn bright enough to light the way for whoever came after. The thought should have terrified her. Instead, it felt like freedom. Quotes. Dawn came too fast. Naira dressed in the simplest clothes she had. No performance, no pretense. And waited for the summons. It came with the sunrise. Guards at her door, no explanation, just the cold efficiency of power in motion. They led her to a room she hadn't seen before. Small, windowless, a table and 2 chairs. The kind of room where confessions happened whether you wanted to confess or not. Soren was waiting. The spymaster smiled like someone who'd already won a game Naira didn't know she was playing. Sit. Nira sat. I'm going to ask you questions. You're going to answer truthfully. And when we're done, we'll both know exactly what you are. He opened a folder. Let's start simple. What were you doing 3 years ago on the night of the border ambush? And there it was. The moment she'd been running from since she walked through the palace gates. Nira looked at Soren's face. Intelligent, merciless, certain of her guilt, and made her choice. I was there, she said. I was the prisoner who escaped. The room went very still. Soren's smile widened. Finally, truth, tell me more. I was part of a resistance cell. We were trying to sabotage supply lines to your troops in the north. We got caught. My team died buying me time to run. I ran, and I've been running ever since. Until 3 years ago, when you stopped running and started working for Lord Thane. Thane didn't know who I was. Nobody did. I erased myself, became someone else, thought I could just fade into nothing, be safe. But then Thane sent you here. Because he's an idiot who thought a commoner bride would insult the king enough to create leverage. Nira laughed bitterly. He had no idea he was sending a ghost into the center of power. I didn't plan this. I didn't want this. I'm just trying to survive the consequences of other people's games. Soren leaned back, studying her. You realize what you've just confessed to. Treason, rebellion, sedition, take your pick. And you expect me to believe you've just given up? That you're not here to finish what your cell started? I expect you to believe I'm tired, that I've lost everyone I ever cared about, that I just want to live long enough to figure out what living actually means. She met his eyes. But if you need me to be a threat to justify whatever you're about to do, then fine. I'm a threat. Execute me and be done with it. The door opened. Draven stood in the threshold, his face unreadable. How long have you been listening? Nira asked. Long enough. He looked at Soren. Leave us. Sire, she just confessed to... I know what she confessed to. Leave us. After Soren left, Draven closed the door and leaned against it, blocking her exit. So, he said quietly, the resistance. Former resistance. Everyone I knew is dead. And you thought you could just hide here, in my palace, under my protection.
I thought I could become nobody. Turns out nobody isn't an option when you're married to the king. He laughed, harsh, without humor. You have any idea what this means? What I'm supposed to do now? Execute me, publicly. Make an example. Show everyone what happens to traitors. Nira stood. It's what any smart king would do. I'm not asking what a smart king would do. I'm asking what you expect me to do. I expect you to do what serves your power. That's all you've ever done.
Draven crossed the room in 2 strides and grabbed her shoulders. You keep saying that, like I'm some kind of monster who only cares about control. But you're wrong. I care about stability, about making sure this kingdom doesn't tear itself apart the way the old kingdoms did. And that means sometimes making hard decisions about people who threaten that stability. Then make your decision. His grip tightened. I can't. Why not? Because... He released her suddenly, turned away. Because you're the first person in 15 years who's looked at me and seen something besides power. You see the paranoia, the fear, the person underneath the crown. And I don't know what to do with that. Nira's breath caught. This was the crack in the armor, the moment when the Alpha King stopped being a performance and became just a man drowning in responsibilities he couldn't escape. What do you want from me? She asked softly. I want you to tell me it's all a lie, that you're not resistance, that you're just some girl who got caught up in circumstances. Give me an excuse to save you. I can't, because it's not a lie. I was part of something that tried to destroy everything you built, and I'm not sorry we tried. I'm only sorry we failed. The truth hung between them like a blade. Then Draven did something Nira never expected. He laughed, really laughed, the sound broken and bitter and almost relieved. Of course, he said. Of course you're exactly what they said you were. Why would you be anything else? What happens now? Now? He turned to face her, and his eyes were empty. Now I make the hardest decision of my reign, and you live with the consequences. He opened the door and called for guards. When they entered, Nira knew this was it. The moment when bravery turned to ash and honesty earned its final reward. Take her to the North Tower, Draven said. No visitors, no communication. Lock her in until I decide what truth is worth. As they led her away, Nira looked back once. Draven stood alone in that small, windowless room, and for just a moment he looked like exactly what he was, a king who'd spent so long building walls to keep chaos out that he'd forgotten how to let anything real in, and she'd just proven why those walls existed. The North Tower was cold, not metaphorically, actually cold, the kind of deep chill that sank into bones and stayed there. The room they locked her in had a window, narrow, barred, that looked out over the capital spreading below like a map of everything she'd never have. Nira sat on the stone floor and waited. For execution, for exile, for whatever truth was worth in a kingdom built on fear, but what came instead was something she never expected. A knock on the door, hesitant and small. Miss Voss? Lyra's voice muffled through thick wood. I brought you food. They said I could leave it, but what? But I needed to tell you something first. Nira pressed against the door. Lyra, you shouldn't be here. If they catch you, well, they're already watching me. I'm already at risk. A pause. But I needed you to know, the speech you gave in the square, people are talking about it, not just in the palace, in the city, in taverns and markets and places where power doesn't usually reach. They're saying you were brave, that you told the truth when everyone else just performs. Brave gets you killed. Maybe. But it also gets remembered, and sometimes being remembered matters more than surviving. The words hit harder than they should have. Because Lyra was right. Nira had spent 3 years trying to be nobody, to fade into the background, to survive by being invisible. And in one day of being herself, she'd created ripples that might outlive her. Thank you, Nira said through the door, for telling me, for everything. What's going to happen to you? I don't know, but whatever it is, don't follow my example. Be smart, be safe, survive. What if I don't want to just survive? Then wait. Wait until you're strong enough that bravery isn't suicide. And when that day comes, be braver than I ever could. Footsteps. Lyra running before someone caught her there. And Nira, alone in the cold, realizing that the story didn't end with her. It never had. 3 days passed. No trial, no execution.
No word from anyone except guards who brought food and wouldn't meet her eyes. On the fourth day, Lady Corvina appeared. She dismissed the guards with the kind of authority that suggested she still had leverage Nyra didn't understand, then sat on the floor across from her. "You're still alive," she said. Disappointingly, yes. The king can't decide what to do with you. Half his advisors want you executed. The other half want you interrogated until they know every detail of resistance operations. She smiled grimly. And Draven himself has locked himself in his chambers and refused to see anyone. You've broken something in him. Good. Maybe being broken will make him better. Or it will make him worse. Kings who question themselves become tyrants who crush questions before they form. Then what do I do? Nothing. You've already done it. Now you wait to see what kind of king he becomes because of you. Corvina stood to leave, then paused. For what it's worth, I think you were right. To tell the truth. To refuse to bend. This palace has been full of people who bend for so long, we've forgotten what it looks like when someone stands straight. A lot of good it's doing me. It's doing more than you know. Change doesn't happen in moments. It happens in the slow accumulation of small rebellions until suddenly the whole structure shifts. She touched the door. Just don't die before you see it. After she left, Nyra thought about structures and shifts and what kind of kingdom might rise from ashes if someone was brave enough to light the match. On the seventh day, Draven came. He looked terrible, exhausted, haunted, like someone who'd spent a week wrestling with demons and come out with no clear winner. He sat on the floor across from her and didn't speak for a long time. Finally, "I should have you executed." "So I've heard. Every rational calculation says you're too dangerous to keep alive. That the moment I show mercy, it becomes weakness. That letting a former resistance member live in my palace sends a message that treason can be survived." All true, but I can't. He looked at her, really looked, and his eyes were raw. "I can't kill you, and I don't know if that makes me weak or finally strong enough to choose something besides fear." What changed? I spent 7 days thinking about what this kingdom is for, and I realized I've spent 15 years building something that keeps people alive but doesn't let them live. Order without joy. Peace without hope. And you walked in here and reminded me that survival isn't enough, that people need something to believe in besides the certainty that challenging power gets them killed. Nyra's throat tightened. "You're not setting me free. I can't. Not yet. Too many people know what you are, but I'm not executing you either." He stood, offered his hand. "I'm giving you a choice." "What choice?" "Stay. Not as a prisoner, as exactly what you were supposed to be. My bride, my partner, my queen. Help me figure out how to build a kingdom that's more than fear holding back chaos. Or leave. Tonight, through the tunnels, disappear into whatever life you can make for yourself. I won't chase you. I won't send armies. You'll just be gone. And if I stay, then we figure out together what truth is worth in a kingdom that's been built on lies. And when the rebellion comes, because it will come, your confession ensured that, we face it as partners instead of king and prisoner. Why would you trust me? Because you're the only person who's told me the truth when it mattered, even when the truth could get you killed." He kept his hand extended. "So what's it going to be? Freedom and safety, or staying in the fire with a king who doesn't know if he's building something better or burning everything down?" Nyra looked at his hand, thought about running, about safety, about disappearing into some quiet life where she could just exist without the weight of kingdoms on her shoulders. But she also thought about Lyra's words, about being remembered, about the people in the square who'd applauded honesty, about what kind of kingdom might rise if someone was brave enough or stupid enough to try building it from the inside. She took his hand. "I'll stay, but not because I trust you, because I want to see if you mean what you say." Draven pulled her to her feet. "That's more than fair. And Draven, if this goes wrong, if you decide power matters more than promises, I'll do whatever it takes to bring you down, even if it costs me everything." His smile was tired and honest, and maybe a little hopeful. I'd expect nothing less. The walk from the North Tower back to the bridal wing felt like crossing a battlefield after the smoke cleared. Nyra could feel eyes tracking her through every corridor. Servants who'd thought her dead, guards who'd expected an execution, courtiers who couldn't reconcile the prisoner walking free beside their king. Draven's hand stayed on her elbow, not guiding, just there, a statement of possession that made her skin crawl and her pulse quickened in equal measure. "They're staring," she said quietly. "Let them." His grip tightened fractionally. Better they stare and wonder than whisper and plot.
You think this stops the plotting? No. But it changes what they're plotting about. They reached her chambers, except they weren't her chambers anymore. The guards stood at different doors, larger ones, ornate with gold inlay, and the royal crest burned into dark wood. "These are your rooms," Nyra said. "These are our rooms now." Draven pushed the doors open. "You wanted to stay. This is what staying looks like." The space beyond was obscene, not just large but deliberately intimidating, designed to remind anyone who entered that the person who lived here controlled kingdoms. A bed that could sleep 6, windows overlooking the entire capital, weapons mounted on walls like trophies, and in the corner, incongruous and somehow threatening, her few belongings already moved in, looking small and out of place among all that power. "I don't remember agreeing to this. You agreed to be my queen. Queens don't live in the bridal wing like prisoners waiting for approval." He closed the doors behind them. "They live here, with me, where everyone can see exactly what you mean to this kingdom." "And what do I mean?" "We're about to find out." He crossed to a cabinet, poured 2 glasses of wine, and handed her one. She took it because refusing felt like giving ground, but she didn't drink. Draven noticed. Of course he noticed. "You think I'd poison you after dragging you out of a cell?" "I think you do everything for a reason, and I don't know the reason yet." His laugh was sharp. "Smart. Good. You should question everything here, especially me." He drank his own wine, watching her over the rim. "The court meets tomorrow morning, full assembly. They're expecting me to announce your execution or exile. Instead, I'm going to announce our wedding date." "Your what?" 1 week from today, full ceremony. Every noble in the territory is required to attend. We're going to stand in front of everyone who wants you dead and bind ourselves together so thoroughly that killing you means challenging me directly." Nyra set down her glass before her shaking hands could spill it. "That's insane. That's survival. Your survival specifically." He moved closer, and she forced herself not to step back. "Right now, you're a problem I could solve quietly, an embarrassment to be managed. But once you're my queen, actually, ceremonially, irrevocably my queen, you become part of the structure. Attacking you means attacking the crown itself. It's the only protection I can offer that might actually keep you alive. Or it's a trap. Bind me to you so completely I can't escape when you change your mind. If I wanted you trapped, you'd still be in the tower." His eyes were dark, unreadable. "I'm giving you armor disguised as a wedding. Whether you trust the gift is up to you." She studied his face, looking for the crack, the tell, the moment when performance gave way to truth. "What do you get out of this? Besides the pleasure of watching my court lose their minds?" He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "I get to see if I'm capable of building something besides fear. You're the test case. If I can make this work, make you safe, make the kingdom accept you, then maybe I'm not the monster they think I am. And if it doesn't work, then we both burn, and at least we'll have company." The honesty of it hit harder than any threat. This wasn't manipulation. It was desperation disguised as strategy, a king gambling his stability on the hope that mercy might be stronger than control. Nyra picked up her wine and drank. 1 week. 1 week. And then what? I smile and wave and pretend I'm grateful for the honor? Then we figure out how to run a kingdom together. You with your inconvenient honesty, me with my paranoid need for control. Should be spectacular. He refilled both glasses. But first we survive tomorrow. And tomorrow is going to be worse than anything you've faced so far. Worse than a tower cell? Worse than anything. Because tomorrow, I'm going to stand in front of everyone who's ever bent to my will and tell them you matter more than their comfort. And they're going to test that. Test you. Test me. Test whether this alliance is real or just theater. His jaw tightened. So tonight, we prepare. You learn who wants you dead, who wants to use you, and who might actually become an ally. And I learn whether you're capable of playing this game without getting yourself killed in the first 10 minutes. I thought you wanted honesty. I want you alive. Honesty is negotiable if it keeps you breathing. Before Nyra could respond, a knock shattered the moment. Draven's hand went to the blade at his hip, pure instinct, before he called permission to enter. Lord Castellan stepped through, his face carefully neutral. "Sire, the generals are requesting an audience." Tell them I'm occupied. They're quite insistent. General Thorne specifically mentioned it concerns the prisoner's status. The prisoner is now my betrothed. Her status is no longer their concern. Castellan's eye twitched. They believe it very much is their concern given her confession. Draven's smile was all teeth. Then I suppose we should clarify that for them. Send them in. Here? Now? You have a problem with my chambers as a meeting location? I have a problem with the impropriety of send them in. After Castellan retreated, Draven turned to Nyra. Don't speak unless I tell you to. Don't show fear even if you feel it. And for the love of every god you don't believe in, don't try to defend yourself. Let me handle this. I can handle... No, you can't. Not yet. Not against them. His hand found her chin, forced her to meet his eyes. These men have crushed rebellions and executed children to maintain order. They don't care about your reasons or your humanity. They care about threats. So you're going to stand there and let them see you're under my protection, and you're going to trust that I'm better at this game than you are. The door opened before she could argue. 3 generals entered like war personified. Thorne in front, the other 2 flanking, a formation designed to intimidate. They stopped 3 feet from Draven and didn't spare Nyra a glance. Your Majesty! Thorne's voice could have frozen rivers. We need to discuss the Resistance operative currently residing in your personal chambers. You mean my bride? I mean the woman who confessed to treason 3 days ago. Confessed to past actions committed before she came under my protection. I see no conflict. The conflict is that she's a threat to kingdom security and you're treating her like a prize. The general's eyes finally cut to Nyra. Unless her value extends beyond politics. Draven moved so fast Nyra barely saw it. One moment he was beside her, the next he had Thorne by the throat, slammed against the wall hard enough to crack plaster. Finish that thought, Draven said softly. Please. I'd love to hear what you're implying about your king's judgment. Thorne didn't struggle, but his eyes blazed. I'm implying that you're thinking with something other than strategic sense. That woman is poison. The longer she stays here, the more she destabilizes everything we've built. She destabilizes nothing. She's one person with no power, no resources, no ability to threaten anything except your comfortable certainty that control solves all problems. Her very existence is a threat. She's a symbol now. The resistance fighter who survived, who seduced the king, who proved that rebellion doesn't have to end in death. Thorne's voice rose. Every dissenter in the kingdom is watching to see if you're strong enough to do what's necessary or weak enough to let emotions cloud your judgment. Draven released him with a shove. My judgment is clear. She stays. She becomes queen. And anyone who has a problem with that can bring it to me directly instead of hiding behind concerns about kingdom security. The second general stepped forward. With respect, sire, marriage doesn't erase her history. The moment you announce this, every resistance cell still operating will see it as validation, proof that their methods work, that all they need to do is get close enough to power and they can survive anything. Or they'll see it as proof that I'm strong enough to turn enemies into allies, that this kingdom is big enough for second chances. Draven's eyes were ice. Which interpretation spreads depends entirely on how this court responds. If you treat her like a threat, she becomes one. If you treat her like my queen, she becomes untouchable. Choose wisely. And if she betrays you? Thorne straightened his uniform. If this is all an elaborate infiltration, and she's just waiting for the right moment to strike, then I'll handle it, personally. But until that moment comes, she's under my protection. Test her if you must, but test her gently, because every bruise you leave will be answered in kind. The threat hung in the air like smoke. The third general, who'd been silent until now, finally spoke. You're asking us to trust a woman who killed 7 of our soldiers. I'm asking you to do your jobs, which include following orders even when you disagree with them. Draven moved to the window, his back to them, a calculated risk, showing confidence. The wedding is in 1 week. Security will be handled by my personal guard, not the military. You will attend. You will smile. You will demonstrate to everyone watching that this kingdom is united. And then you will return to your posts and keep the territories stable while I navigate the politics of this decision. And if we refuse? Draven turned, and his smile was terrible. Then I'll find generals who understand that serving the crown means serving my decisions, not questioning them. Silence. Finally, Thorne nodded. As you command, Your Majesty. Good. Now get out, all of you, and send word to every corner of this kingdom that in 1 week, the Alpha King takes a queen. Make sure they understand what that means. After they left, the room felt too small despite its size. Naira realized she'd been holding her breath and let it out slowly. You just made enemies of the 3 most powerful military commanders in the kingdom. I already had them as enemies. I just made them uncertain enemies, which is more useful. Draven poured himself another drink. They'll test you, probably at the wedding. Something public enough to prove a point, but subtle enough that I can't retaliate without looking paranoid. What kind of test? That depends on how creative they're feeling. Could be anything from a too rough handshake to a poisoned toast. He caught her expression. I'm not joking. This court has killed people for less than what you represent. Then why go through with it? Why not just exile me and save yourself the headache? Because exiling you admits weakness. It says the resistance won, that one woman was enough to compromise my certainty. And the moment I show that kind of weakness, every territory I've held through strength will start wondering if they can push back too. He moved closer, and his eyes were burning. So instead, I'm doing the opposite. I'm claiming you so completely that opposing you means opposing me. It's the only play that doesn't end with us both destroyed. You keep saying us like we're a team. Aren't we? You chose to stay. I chose to protect you. That makes us partners whether we like it or not. Partners don't threaten each other. Partners don't lie to each other either, but you spent 7 days in that tower before telling me the truth. He stepped back, giving her space. We're both learning this. Neither of us knows if it'll work, but we're past the point where we can walk away without consequences. So we might as well walk forward and see what happens. The logic was sound. The situation was insane. And somewhere in the middle of those 2 facts, Naira realized she was actually considering making this work. I'll need clothes for tomorrow. For the wedding. I can't keep wearing borrowed things that don't fit. Draven's smile was genuine this time. Already arranged. Mistress Karen has been working with seamstresses since this afternoon. You'll have everything you need by dawn. You were that certain I'd agree? I was that certain you'd choose survival over pride. The rest is details. Another knock. This time, Draven's irritation was visible. What? Soren entered without waiting for permission, which told Naira exactly how serious this was. The spymaster's face was carved from stone. We have a problem. We have several. Be specific. Lord Thane is dead, killed in his sleep 3 hours ago. No signs of struggle? Poison, most likely. Soren's eyes cut to Naira. And before he died, he sent a message to the Northern Territories, claiming the king is holding his envoy prisoner, that the marriage is a sham designed to justify executing her publicly. Draven went very still. Show me the message. Soren handed over a sealed letter. Draven read it twice, his jaw working mechanically. Then he handed it to Naira. The words were damning. Thane painting himself as a victim, Naira as an innocent pawn, Draven as a tyrant using marriage as cover for murder. And the final line, a call for the Northern Lords to unite and demand her return or face economic sanctions. This is a trap, Naira said slowly. Thane set this up before he died. Knew he was dying. Used his last breath to make sure I'd become a political crisis. Why? Draven's voice was flat, dangerous. What did you do to make him hate you enough to burn everything on his way out? Nothing. I barely knew him. I was just a guard on his border. Then why send you here? Why not one of his daughters? Why not someone with actual value? He grabbed her shoulders. What aren't you telling me? I don't know. I swear, I don't know why he chose me. Soren cleared his throat. If I may, there's another possibility. Speak. Thane didn't send her as an insult. He sent her as a weapon. Not to kill you, but to destabilize you. He knew her history, knew what would happen when it came out, and he set this up so that whether you executed her or protected her, the result would be the same. The Northern Territories would have cause to rebel. The pieces clicked into place with sickening clarity. Naira wasn't just a bride or a prisoner or a former resistance fighter. She was a bomb Thane had carefully placed at the center of the kingdom, timed to explode the moment Draven made any decision at all. The wedding makes it worse, Draven said quietly. If I marry her now, the North sees it as me claiming their property. If I don't, they see weakness. Either way, they rebel. Unless, Soren said carefully, you give her back. No. The word was absolute. Sire, if you return her to the Northern Territories with a formal apology. I said no. Draven's eyes blazed. I'm not handing her over to be executed for Thane's games. Find another solution. There is no other solution. The North is going to move regardless. Our only choice is whether they move with cause or without it.
Then they move without it. Send word to the Northern Lords that Thane's message was the delusion of a dying man, that the envoy he sent is indeed my bride, by her choice and mine, and that any action they take based on his lies will be considered an act of war. Soren's face went pale. You're willing to risk civil war over her?
I'm willing to risk civil war over not letting dead men dictate policy from their graves. Draven released Nyra, moved to his desk. Draft the response, make it clear, make it final, and make sure every lord in the North understands that challenging this decision means challenging me personally. And if they challenge anyway, then we go to war, and I remind them why they bent knee in the first place. After Soren left, Nyra found her voice. You just chose me over peace. I chose not letting Thane win. There's a difference. Is there? Because from where I'm standing, you just painted a target on this entire kingdom because you're too stubborn to admit when you're wrong. His hand slammed the desk. Wrong about what? About thinking one woman's life matters more than political convenience? About refusing to execute someone to satisfy lords who'd rebel anyway, given half an excuse? About thinking you can control this? About thinking strength solves everything? She moved toward him, fury overriding caution. You keep talking about stability, but all you're doing is creating chaos. And the worst part is you know it. You know this is going to end badly, and you're doing it anyway because your pride won't let you back down. My pride? His laugh was bitter. You think this is about pride? This is about not letting fear run my kingdom. About not teaching every dissenter that all they need to do is create enough problems, and I'll sacrifice whoever's inconvenient to make them stop. So instead, you sacrifice everyone by starting a war you might not win. I'll win. I always win. Until you don't. And then what? You die believing you were right, and I die knowing I could have prevented it by just walking away? You had your chance to walk away. You chose to stay. I chose wrong. The words hung between them like a blade. Draven's eyes went dead. Then leave. Right now. Walk out that door and disappear into whatever life you think is waiting. I won't stop you. You'll start a war anyway. Probably. But at least you'll be alive to hear about it. Nyra stared at him. This king who'd somehow become human enough to hurt, powerful enough to terrify, and broken enough to need something he couldn't name. And she realized the trap had closed completely. If she left, she proved that threats worked. That all you needed to destabilize Draven Kael was to create enough pressure, and he'd fold. And the next crisis would hit harder, faster, more certain of victory. If she stayed, she accepted responsibility for whatever came next. War, death, the collapse of everything he'd built because she'd been too honest, or he'd been too stubborn, or both. There was no good choice, just two different kinds of destruction. I'm staying, she said finally, not because I trust you, not because I think this will work, but because walking away means Thane wins even from the grave, and I'm tired of dead men making my choices. Draven exhaled slowly. Then we face it together. Don't romanticize this. We're facing it because we're both too stubborn to do the smart thing. Probably. He moved to the wine cabinet, poured 2 glasses. To stubbornness, then, and the disasters it creates. They drank in silence, and outside the windows the capital slept, unaware that the king had just chosen pride over peace, and the kingdom would pay the price. The next morning came with thunder, not weather. People. The court assembling in the great hall like an army preparing for battle, every noble and advisor and power player crammed into space designed to make them feel small while making the king look infinite. Nyra dressed in clothes Karen had delivered at dawn, deep blue, severe, deliberately chosen to convey authority without warmth. The seamstress had worked overnight, and the fit was perfect, which somehow made it worse, like armor that wouldn't protect against the weapons this room would use. Draven was already gone when she woke, preparing for whatever theater the announcement required. A guard waited to escort her, young and terrified, clearly ordered to die before letting her out of his sight. "What's your name?" she asked as they walked. "Marcus, my lady." "Don't call me lady. I haven't earned it yet." His confusion was visible. "What should I call you?" "Nothing. Just don't let me walk into a room without knowing who wants me dead." "That would be everyone, He caught himself. "Everyone except maybe Lady Corvina. She's been asking about you." "Asking what?" "Whether you're brave or suicidal. I don't think she's decided yet." The great hall doors loomed ahead, carved with scenes of conquest and submission, a reminder that this kingdom was built on bending or breaking. The guards pulled them open, and sound hit like a wave, 200 voices arguing, debating, demanding answers. And at the center of it all, on a throne that looked like it was carved from midnight, Draven sat with the patience of a predator, waiting for prey to exhaust itself. The room fell silent when Nyra entered. She forced herself to walk normally. Not too fast, not too slow. Just a woman crossing a room to stand beside a king who'd gambled his kingdom on her staying alive. Every eye tracked her progress. Every face calculated her value and came up wanting. Draven didn't stand when she reached the dais, didn't acknowledge her beyond a fractional nod that said he'd registered her presence. And Nyra understood. This was part of the performance. Show no weakness. Give them nothing to attack. She stood 3 steps below the throne, visible but not equal, present but not power. Lord Castellan stepped forward, his voice carrying across the hall. "The court is assembled, Your Majesty. You may begin." Draven stood slowly, and the room held its breath. 7 days ago, he said, I received a bride from the Northern Territories. A woman sent to seal alliances and strengthen bonds between regions. What I received instead was a test, not of her worth, but of mine. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. You want to know if I'm strong enough to rule when challenged, if I can make hard decisions when comfortable ones are available, if I value stability over truth. His eyes swept the room. The woman standing before you is Nyra Voss, former resistance, confirmed fighter against Crown forces. By every law and precedent, she should be executed. The murmurs grew louder. Nyra felt her pulse hammering, but kept her face blank. But I'm not executing her. I'm marrying her. 1 week from today, she becomes queen. Not because I'm weak, not because I'm compromised, but because I'm done pretending that fear is the same as strength. He looked directly at General Thorne. Some of you will see this as madness. Good. Be mad. Question me. Demand explanations. And then watch as I prove that power doesn't require killing everyone who challenges it. With respect, Your Majesty, Thorne's voice cut through. You're asking us to accept a traitor as queen, to smile and celebrate while someone who killed our soldiers wears a crown. That's not strength. That's delusion. Is it? Or is it the understanding that yesterday's enemy might be tomorrow's ally if given the chance? Draven descended 3 steps, bringing himself closer to the crowd. This kingdom was built on conquest, on forcing submission, and it's held together by fear of what happens when you resist. But fear has limits. Eventually, people stop fearing death more than they fear living under tyranny. And when that happens, everything we've built collapses. So your solution is to reward rebellion? Another voice, Lord someone. Nyra didn't catch the name. My solution is to show that submission isn't the only path to survival, that this kingdom is big enough for people who've made mistakes, who've fought on the wrong side, who've been broken and put themselves back together. His eyes found Nyra. She's proof that change is possible, that we can be more than fear and violence. The speech should have moved them, should have resonated with anyone tired of living under the weight of absolute power. Instead, Lady Corvina started laughing. Soft at first, then louder, until the whole hall turned to stare at her. Forgive me, Your Majesty, she said, not sounding sorry at all. But that's beautiful nonsense. You want us to believe this is about reform? About building a better kingdom? Please, this is about pride. About refusing to admit that Thane outmaneuvered you by sending a weapon disguised as a bride. Careful, Corvina. Why? What will you do? Execute me for speaking truth? That rather proves my point, doesn't it? She moved through the crowd like a shark through water. You're not protecting her because she represents change. You're protecting her because losing her means admitting you were wrong. And you've never been wrong before, have you? Never made a decision that cost you something you couldn't afford to lose. I'm warning you. Oh, and I'm warning you back. This marriage will tear the kingdom apart. The North is already moving toward rebellion. The military thinks you're compromised. The court thinks you're bewitched. And the common people? She smiled. They don't know what to think, because you've spent 15 years teaching them that questioning authority gets them killed. So they'll wait. They'll watch. And when this inevitably explodes, they'll remember that you chose one woman over their safety. Nyra's hands clenched at her sides. She wanted to defend Draven, to argue, to do something besides stand there like a prize being debated. But his earlier words echoed, don't speak, don't show fear, let him handle this. Draven's voice dropped to something cold and final. Are you finished?
Not even close, but I'll pause so you can pretend you've thought about what I said before ignoring it completely. Corvina turned to face Nira directly. Tell me, girl, do you love him?
The question landed like a knife between ribs. That's not relevant, Draven said. Oh, it's completely relevant. Because if she loves you, then this is a tragedy waiting to happen. And if she doesn't, then she's using you, which makes you the fool everyone's too afraid to call you. Corvina's eyes were sharp. So which is it? Love or survival? Nira met her gaze and made a choice. Survival. I don't love him. I barely know him. But I'm choosing to stay because running means dying slowly somewhere else. And staying means maybe building something that doesn't require constant fear to function. She looked at the crowd. You want honesty? Here it is. I killed soldiers. I fought against this crown. I'd do it again if I thought it would work. But it didn't work. The resistance failed. And now I'm here, trying to figure out if the kingdom that crushed us could ever become something worth not crushing. Oh, sorry that I did. Come on. Silence so thick it felt solid. Then someone in the back started clapping. Slow, deliberate, mocking. The clapping spread, but it wasn't approval. It was the kind of applause you give to someone who's just sealed their own fate, the sound of a crowd watching an execution and appreciating the condemned's final words. Draven's hand found hers, squeezed once. A warning or comfort or both. The wedding, he said over the noise, will proceed as planned. Anyone who wishes to object can do so then. And anyone who chooses violence over objection will be treated as an enemy of the crown. He pulled Nira up the steps, positioning her beside the throne. Court is dismissed. Get out. They left slowly, reluctantly, like wolves being called off a kill. And through it all, Nira felt the weight of what she'd just done. She'd told the truth again. And truth, in this place, was gasoline on an already burning fire. When the hall finally emptied, Draven released her hand and walked to the window. His shoulders were tight, his breathing controlled, and Nira realized he was furious. You weren't supposed to speak. Corvina asked me a direct question. Not answering would have looked worse. Not answering would have been smart. Instead, you admitted to being a killer and a survivor who'd do it all again. Do you have any idea what you just gave them? The truth. Ammunition. He spun to face her. You gave them ammunition. Every word you said will be twisted, repeated, used as proof that you're unrepentant, that marrying you is rewarding treason. Maybe it is. Maybe that's what needs to happen. What needs to happen is you staying alive long enough for this to stabilize, but you keep making that impossible by refusing to play the game. I don't know how to play the game. I'm a fighter, not a politician. You want someone who can smile and lie and pretend? You married the wrong person. I didn't marry you yet. And at this rate, I'm starting to wonder if I should. The words hit harder than any blow. Nira stepped back. Then don't. Call it off. Send me away. Save yourself the trouble. I can't. We're past the point where backing down is an option. Then stop blaming me for not being what you need and start accepting what I am. And what are you? Broken, angry, trying to survive in a world that wants me dead for being honest. She moved toward the door. If that's not good enough, then nothing I do will be. His hand caught her wrist before she could leave. Wait, why? So you can tell me again how I'm ruining everything? I already know. So I can apologize. The words came hard like pulling teeth. You're right. I keep expecting you to be something you're not. Something safer, and that's not fair. No, it's not. But I'm also right. You need to learn when honesty helps and when it destroys. Because the next time you speak that freely, I might not be able to protect you from the consequences. Nira pulled her wrist free. Then teach me. Show me how to be what this place needs without losing what makes me myself. Because right now, I'm drowning, and you're just telling me to swim harder without showing me which direction is up. For a long moment, Draven just looked at her. Then, incredibly, he smiled. You're exhausting. You're impossible. We're perfect for each other. We're a disaster. That too. The tension broke slightly, not gone, but bearable. And Nira realized this was what partnership looked like when neither person knew what they were doing. The North, she said quietly, what happens when they rebel? We crush them, quickly, decisively, before it spreads. And if crushing them makes everything worse, then we deal with worse. But we deal with it together. He moved closer. No more secrets, no more tests. If we're doing this, we're doing it honestly.
Even when honesty destroys? Especially then, because at least we'll know what's coming.
The door burst open. Soren, breathing hard, his face carved from panic. They're moving. The Northern Lords. Not rebellion. Assassination. They've hired the Shadow Hand. Draven went perfectly still. You're certain? My source just died delivering the message. The contract was sealed 2 hours ago. Target is her. He looked at Nyra. They're not waiting for the wedding. They're killing you before you can become queen, then blaming it on resistance sympathizers. Makes Draven look weak and gives them cause to break away. When? Draven's voice was ice. Shadowhand chooses their own timing. Could be today. Could be the wedding itself. They're the best in the territories. I know what they are. He grabbed Nyra's arm. You're not leaving my sight. Not for a second. Wherever I go, you go. Whatever I do, you're next to me. Understand? I can defend myself. Against the Shadow Hand? No, you can't. Nobody can. They've killed kings and queens and people far better protected than you. The only thing keeping you alive is making you too difficult a target to reach. He turned to Soren. Double the guard, triple it, and find me that contract. I want to know who hired them and how much they're paying. Maybe we can outbid. The Shadow Hand doesn't break contracts. Then we change the terms. Find a way. After Soren left, Draven pulled Nyra close, and she felt him shaking. Not fear, fury, controlled by pure will. This is my fault, he said quietly. I made you visible, made you valuable, put you in the center of everything when I should have hidden you until the storm passed. You couldn't have hidden me. Everyone already knew. I could have protected you better, could have seen this coming. His grip tightened. I'm not losing you to hired killers and political games. You don't own me. You can't lose what you don't have. Then I'm not letting you die. Better? Marginally. He laughed despite everything. We're going to the North Tower, the one you were imprisoned in. It's the most defensible position in the palace, and I can control every access point. We'll stay there until Soren finds the contract or the Shadow Hand makes their move. And if they don't move, if they wait, then we wait longer, however long it takes. They moved through corridors crawling with guards, every shadow suddenly suspect, every sound a potential threat. And Nyra realized this was what her choice had cost, not just her freedom, but Draven's certainty, the court's stability, and now potentially her life. The tower cell felt different this time. Less prison, more fortress. Draven positioned guards at every entrance, sealed the window, and then finally, when they were alone, let himself collapse into a chair. Tell me about the Shadow Hand, Nyra said. No. I need to know what I'm facing. You're facing death if they get through. That's all you need to know. Draven, fine. His voice was flat. The Shadow Hand is a legend. Maybe one person, maybe many. They've been operating for 20 years and nobody's ever seen their face. They kill silently, perfectly, and they never fail. Poison, blade, arranged accident, doesn't matter. If they take a contract, the target dies. Always. Has anyone survived? No. Then I'll be the first. His laugh was hollow. Your confidence is admirable and completely unfounded. Better than giving up before they even try. This isn't giving up. This is accepting reality. He stood, paced to the window. I've made so many enemies over the years, crushed so many rebellions, executed so many people who challenged me, and now those decisions are coming back as a knife aimed at the only person He stopped. At someone I'm trying to protect. You were going to say something else. I was going to say something stupid. Let it go. But Nyra couldn't let it go. Because she'd heard what he almost admitted, and it changed everything or nothing. She couldn't tell which. How long do we wait here? She asked instead. As long as it takes? Days? Weeks? However long until you're safe. I'll never be safe. Not really. Not while half the kingdom wants me dead and the other half wants to use me. Then I'll make sure the half that wants you dead is too terrified to try, and the half that wants to use you understands the cost. He moved closer. I know this isn't what you wanted, this cage dressed as protection, but it's all I have to offer right now. It's enough. For now. They settled into an uneasy silence, waiting for death that might come from any direction, and somewhere in the capital below, the Shadow Hand was planning how to kill a woman the king had decided to. Hours bled into each other in the tower cell that had become a fortress. Nyra watched the sun track across the narrow window while Draven paced like a caged wolf, stopping every few minutes to check the guard positions, the sealed door, the trajectory of shadows that might hide an assassin. "You need to sleep," she said finally. "I need you alive." Those aren't mutually exclusive. They are when the shadow hand is involved. He checked the door again. Soren should have reported by now. The contract, the hiring party, something. As if summoned, a knock shattered the silence. 3 sharp raps, the agreed signal. Draven moved to the door himself, cracked it enough to see Soren's face before opening it fully. The spymaster entered alone, and his expression was worse than bad news. It was devastation trying to wear a professional mask. "Tell me you found them," Draven said. "I found the contract." Soren's voice was carefully empty. "You're not going to like where it came from." "I don't like anything about this situation. Speak." Soren pulled out a folded document, edges burned, seal broken. "The Shadow Hand keeps records. Insurance, in case employers try to betray them. My source managed to copy this before dying." He handed it to Draven. "The contract was sealed 6 weeks ago, before Naira even arrived at the palace." Draven unfolded it slowly, read once, read again. Then his face went absolutely blank in the way that preceded extreme violence. "No," he said quietly. "I verified it 3 times. The signature is authentic. It's a forgery. It has to be. Sire, get out." Soren's eyes cut to Naira, something like pity in them, before he retreated and closed the door. Naira stood. "What does it say?" Draven didn't answer. He just stared at the document like it was written in a language he couldn't comprehend, his breathing getting shorter, sharper, until she thought he might actually break. "Draven, what does it say?" He handed it to her without looking up. The parchment was expensive, the kind used for official contracts. The terms were laid out in precise legal language. 1 life, 1 target, payment in gold and territorial concessions. The signature at the bottom was ornate, unmistakable. Lord Thane's signature. But that wasn't the part that made Naira's blood freeze. The target wasn't her. It was Draven, and the person who'd accepted the contract, who'd agreed to the terms and signed their own name below Thane's, was also unmistakable. Naira Voss. Her own name, her own handwriting, or something so close to it that even she couldn't tell the difference. "This is a lie," she said, but her voice sounded far away. "I never signed this. I never agreed to kill you. The Shadow Hand doesn't take forged contracts. They verify everything before they act." Draven's voice was hollow. "Which means either that signature is real, or someone who knows you well enough to forge it perfectly made this deal." "I didn't do this." "Then who did?" The question hung in the air like poison, because the signature was perfect. The date was 6 weeks ago, before Thane had even sent her to the palace. And if someone had set this up, if someone had known she'd end up here and had prepared a contract to frame her for regicide— "Thane," Naira said slowly, "this was Thane's final move. He forged my signature, hired the Shadow Hand, and set it up so that when they killed you, I'd take the blame. The kingdom would execute me, the North would rebel claiming I was innocent, and everything would collapse. Except the Shadow Hand doesn't kill on forged contracts. They verify the employer personally before accepting." Draven finally looked at her, and his eyes were empty. "Which means either you're lying now, or someone who looks exactly like you met with them 6 weeks ago and agreed to this. That's impossible. 6 weeks ago, I was still in the North, working Thane's border. I never left the post." "Can you prove that? Can I—" Naira's laugh was sharp with panic. "You want me to prove I wasn't secretly meeting with legendary assassins? How exactly do I prove a negative? Witnesses, records, anything that puts you somewhere else when this contract was signed?" "The border is isolated. Most days I was alone on patrol. No witnesses, no records beyond shift logs that Thane controlled. The trap closed around her with sickening clarity. He planned this, knew he was dying, set me up to be the weapon that destroys you and the scapegoat that destroys the kingdom. We're both just pieces in a dead man's revenge." Draven moved to the window, his back to her. "Tell me the truth. One more time. Did you sign this contract?" "No." "Did you agree to kill me in any form? Under any circumstances? For any reason?" "No." "Then we have a problem. Because the Shadow Hand is coming to fulfill a contract with your name on it, and when they arrive, they're going to expect you to honor the terms. Which means either they kill me and you're complicit, or they realize it's a fraud and kill us both for wasting their time." Naira's hands shook.
There has to be a way to prove this is fake. The only way to prove it is to find who actually signed it and make them confess. And everyone involved except you is conveniently dead. Not everyone. Naira's mind raced. The Shadow Hand is still alive. They met whoever signed this. If we can get to them, make them identify it. You don't get to the Shadow Hand. They get to you, and they're probably already here. A sound outside the door. Soft. Wrong.
Draven had his blade out before Naira registered the threat. He positioned himself between her and the door, every muscle coiled for violence. Stay behind me. The door didn't open. Instead, a piece of parchment slid underneath it. Whisper quiet. Draven kicked it away from the door before picking it up. Read it, then handed it to Naira with an expression that might have been respect or might have been resignation. The message was simple. Rooftop, midnight. Come alone or the contract proceeds immediately. S. S for Shadow Hand, Naira said, or S for suicide. Could be a trap. Could be our only chance to prove I didn't hire them. Draven checked his timepiece. It's nearly midnight now. If I go, they said alone. That means me. Absolutely not. You're not walking into an assassin's meeting without protection. If I don't, they kill you anyway. At least this way I might be able to convince them the contract is fraudulent. Or they kill you for wasting their time and then kill me for good measure. He moved to the door, checked the corridor. Empty. We go together. You talk. I watch for threats. Non-negotiable. They climbed through passages Naira didn't know existed, up stairs that spiraled into darkness, through doorways that opened onto sections of the palace that felt forgotten. The architecture changed as they rose, less ornate, more functional, until finally they emerged onto the rooftop under stars that looked like ice chips scattered across black silk. A figure waited at the far edge, hooded, still, patient as stone. Alone meant alone, the figure said. Female voice, young, completely devoid of emotion. Alone meant the target comes without an army, Naira replied. I brought one guard. You want him to leave, kill me first and see how that works out for your reputation. A laugh, soft, almost amused. Fair. He can stay, but he stays there. She pointed to the opposite edge. This conversation is between employer and contractor. Draven didn't move. She's not your employer. The contract says otherwise. The contract is a forgery. Then someone went to extraordinary lengths to forge it, including forging the advance payment I received, the territorial maps of the palace I was provided, and the detailed intelligence on the target's movements and vulnerabilities. The Shadow Hand pulled back her hood. Naira's breath stopped. The face beneath was young, maybe 20, with features that would have been beautiful if they weren't so carefully blank. But that wasn't what made Naira's world tilt sideways. It was that the face was familiar. Not someone she knew, someone she'd seen in a mirror, not identical. The Shadow Hand's face was sharper, older somehow despite the youth, marked by scars that Naira didn't have. But the bone structure, the eyes, the way she held herself, they could have been sisters. What is this? Naira's voice came out strangled. This is why I took the contract. The Shadow Hand moved closer, and in the starlight, the resemblance was undeniable. 6 weeks ago, a woman who looked exactly like you hired me to kill the Alpha King. She had your mannerisms, your voice, your walk. She knew things about you that only you should know, and she paid extremely well. That's impossible. I thought so too. Which is why I verified. Followed her for 3 days. Watched her interact with Thane's household. Saw her sleeping in quarters assigned to border guards. The Shadow Hand's eyes were ice. She was you. Or someone who'd studied you so thoroughly that the difference was invisible. Draven's voice cut through. You're saying someone impersonated Naira to hire you? I'm saying someone who might be Naira's twin hired me. And now the real Naira is here, and I'm trying to decide which of you is the fraud. Naira's mind spun. A twin. A double. Someone who looked like her, sounded like her, knew her patterns well enough to fool a professional assassin. It was insane, except it explained everything. Why Thane had sent her specifically, why the contract signature was perfect, why this entire trap had been set with surgical precision. I don't have a twin, she said. I don't have any family. I've been alone since... She stopped. Because she didn't actually know. Her memories before 5 years ago were fragmented, damaged by trauma she'd never fully processed. She remembered fire and screaming and running, but not faces, not names, not whether she'd had siblings who'd burned when she escaped. You don't remember, the Shadow Hand said flatly. Interesting. The woman who hired me said you wouldn't. Said your memories were damaged when the resistance cell you were part of was destroyed. Said she'd been watching you for years, waiting for the right moment to use you. Use me for what? This. All of this. The marriage, the scandal, the kingdom tearing itself apart. She said you were the perfect weapon because you wouldn't know you were being wielded. The shadow hand circled them slowly. She gave me very specific instructions. Wait until after the wedding announcement. Make the kill look like it came from the resistance. Let Naira take the blame. Watch the kingdom collapse when they execute her and the North rebels in response. Draven's hand was on his blade. And you agreed to this? I agreed to kill a target for payment. The politics are irrelevant to me. Then why are we having this conversation instead of dodging your knife? Because the woman who hired me made one mistake. The shadow hand stopped directly in front of Naira. She assumed I wouldn't care whether my employer was real or fake as long as I got paid. But I have rules. One of them is that I don't fulfill contracts based on fraud. If you're the real Nira Voss and someone impersonated you to hire me, the contract is void. And if I can't prove I'm real, then I kill the king, you take the blame, and I collect my fee from whoever's waiting to pay. Win-win from my perspective. Naira wanted to scream, wanted to demand proof, answers, something besides this nightmare where even her own identity was suspect. How do I prove I'm me? You don't, she does. The shadow hand gestured to someone behind them. Naira spun. A second figure emerged from the shadows at the far end of the rooftop, smaller, hooded. Moving with a grace that made Naira's training scream warnings, the figure pulled back her hood. Naira was staring at her own face, not similar, identical. Every scar, every line, every detail that made Naira herself reflected back with impossible precision. The only difference was the eyes. Where Naira's held confusion and fear, this woman's held cold calculation and something that might have been pity. "Hello, sister," the double said. Surprised? Nira couldn't breathe, couldn't think, could only stare at this impossible reflection and feel reality crack down the middle. "Who are you?" "I'm you. The version of you that didn't forget. The version that survived the purge and spent 5 years planning revenge while you wandered the borders pretending to be nobody." The double moved closer. "We're twins, born minutes apart, trained together in the resistance until the Crown forces came and burned everything. You ran, I hid, you forgot, I remembered. That's not possible. I would know if I had a sister. You would if your memories weren't conveniently damaged by trauma. Tell me, Naira, what's the first thing you remember?" Fire. Screaming, running through smoke and blood and chaos until she collapsed in a field and woke up with a stranger shaking her shoulder, asking her name, and realizing she didn't know. "Nothing before 5 years ago," Naira whispered. "Just fragments." "Exactly. Because when the soldiers came, you hit your head running. Concussion severe enough to wipe out most of your childhood. You forgot our parents, our training, our purpose. You forgot me." The double's smile was sharp. "But I didn't forget you. I watched you stumble through the world like a ghost, working random jobs, barely surviving. And I realized you were perfect, a weapon that didn't know it was loaded." Draven stepped between them. "Get to the point, or I'm killing both of you and sorting out which is which later. The point is that I needed someone to take the fall when the king died. Someone with resistance history who'd be believable as an assassin. Someone who could get close to power without raising suspicion." The double's eyes met Naira's. "So I spent years building your cover story. Got you a job with Thane. Made sure you were competent enough to be useful, but forgettable enough to be disposable. And when the time came, I convinced Thane to send you here as a bride while I hired the Shadow Hand to do the actual work." "Why?" The word came out broken. "If you wanted Draven dead, why not just kill him yourself? Because killing a king is easy. Destroying a kingdom is hard. I needed the death to spark civil war, and that required someone to blame who the people might actually defend. You, honest, defiant, exactly stupid enough to tell the truth and make everyone love you for it, were perfect. When they executed you for my crime, the North would rebel, the court would fracture, and everything Draven built would burn. The logic was flawless. The betrayal was complete. And Naira felt something inside her shatter that might never be whole again. You're my sister, and you turned me into bait. I'm your sister, and I gave you purpose. For the first time in 5 years, you mattered. People knew your name. The king himself was willing to start a war to keep you alive." The double's voice dropped. I gave you meaning, even if you were too broken to understand it. Nira's hand found the knife Corvina had given her. I should kill you. You could try, but we were trained together. Same teachers, same techniques. You've forgotten most of it. I've practiced every day for 5 years. The double didn't even tense. Besides, killing me doesn't solve your problem. The Shadow Hand still has a contract. I've already paid half. If she doesn't fulfill it, her reputation suffers. And reputation is everything in her profession. The Shadow Hand nodded confirmation. The contract stands unless I'm paid more to void it. Significantly more. How much? Draven's voice was ice. Triple the original fee plus territorial concessions I'll detail later. And immunity for the fraud that got me here. Done. Name your price. I'm not finished. I also want her. The Shadow Hand pointed at the double. She made me complicit in a fraud that could have destroyed my reputation. That requires payment in blood. The double's smile never wavered. You could try to collect, but I don't plan on dying tonight. Then we have a problem, because I don't leave contracts unfulfilled and I don't let frauds walk away. 3 killers on a rooftop, all with different goals, and Naira stood in the middle, feeling like reality had twisted into something unrecognizable. Stop, she said. Everyone just stop. Why? Her double tilted her head. You finally going to make a decision? Choose a side? You've been drifting for 5 years, Naira, letting other people push you around, letting circumstances decide who you become. Maybe it's time you actually chose something. I chose to stay. I chose to fight for a kingdom that could be better. You chose survival disguised as idealism. There's a difference. The double moved closer, ignoring Draven's blade. But I'll give you a real choice now. Let the Shadow Hand kill Draven. Let the kingdom collapse. Walk away from all of this and disappear into whatever life you want. I'll make sure no one ever finds you. You can finally be free. In exchange for what? For letting me win. For admitting that sometimes the only way to change a broken system is to burn it down and build something new from the ashes. Her eyes were fever bright. Join me. Help me finish what the resistance started. We're twins, Naira. We're supposed to be fighting together. The offer hung in the air like a blade. Nira looked at Draven, the king who'd gambled everything on protecting her, who'd chosen mercy over certainty, who was standing here waiting to die or be saved by a woman he'd known for less than 2 weeks. Then she looked at her sister, the ghost of a life she couldn't remember, offering freedom and revenge, and the chance to finally matter beyond being someone else's pawn. No, Nira said. The double's face went flat. No? I'm not helping you destroy everything because you think burning down kingdoms counts as progress. Nira's grip tightened on her knife. You spent 5 years building me into a weapon and forgot that weapons can choose their own targets. You're choosing him? The man who's built an empire on fear and violence? The king who's killed more of our people than anyone in history? I'm choosing the possibility that people can change, that kingdoms can be better, that mercy might actually be stronger than revenge. Naira met her sister's eyes. You're so focused on destroying what's broken that you forgot to imagine what could be built instead. Her sister laughed. You sound like him. He's infected you with his delusions about power and reform. You've forgotten what they did to us, what this crown took from our family. I don't remember what they took, but I remember what I've seen here. People trying, failing, trying again. It's messy and painful and probably doomed, but it's still better than burning it all down and hoping something better grows in the ashes. Then you're choosing to die, because the Shadow Hand still has a contract, and someone is dying tonight to fulfill it. The Shadow Hand stepped forward. Actually, the contract just became more interesting. The employer tried to defraud me, which voids the original terms. But 3 parties are now offering payment for 3 different outcomes. I'm inclined to take the highest bid. Draven's voice was sharp. I already offered triple plus concessions. And she's offering freedom and chaos, and her... The Shadow Hand gestured at Naira, is offering nothing except moral superiority. Not exactly a compelling bid. What do you want? Nira asked. I want to be entertained. This situation has become far more interesting than a simple assassination. So here's my counteroffer. The Shadow Hand moved to the center of the rooftop. I'm going to void all existing contracts. No one pays me anything. No one dies tonight. In exchange, I want to see how this plays out. A king trying to reform through mercy. A resistance fighter trying to destroy through chaos. And you trying to survive in the middle while choosing which world to build. That's it? Draven's suspicion was visible. You're walking away because you're curious? I'm walking away because killing you would be boring compared to watching what happens when you try to prove mercy works. If you succeed, I witness history. If you fail, the kingdom collapses and provides excellent cover for future contracts. Either way, I win. The sister moved fast, blade appearing from nowhere, aimed at Draven's throat. Nira was faster. She didn't think, didn't calculate. Just moved on instinct that came from training she didn't remember, muscle memory buried under 5 years of forgetting. Her knife caught her sister's wrist, twisted, sent the blade skittering across stone. They crashed together and Nira realized her sister was right. They'd been trained together, moved the same way, thought in the same patterns. Every attack Nira made was countered by someone who knew exactly what she'd do because they'd learned the same techniques from the same teachers. "You forgot," her sister hissed, "but your body remembers." "Then let's see what else it remembers." They fought like mirrors, each move reflected and countered, neither gaining ground. And somewhere in the violence, Nira felt pieces clicking into place, fragments of memory returning with each familiar motion. Training yards, instructors barking orders, a small hand holding hers while they practiced forms. Her sister's voice, younger, laughing. "We'll always fight together." The memory hit so hard Nira stumbled. Her sister's blade found her ribs. Not deep. Enough to hurt, to remind her that hesitation killed. "You remember now," her sister said. "Good. Remember what they took from us. Remember why we fight." Nira touched the wound, felt blood warm and real. "I remember we were children, soldiers on both sides. Neither of us chose the war. We didn't choose it, but we can choose to end it. Not like this. Not by becoming exactly what we fought against." She moved again, faster, using techniques that surfaced from buried training. This time she got inside her sister's guard, put her blade to her throat, and held. They stood frozen. One twitch would open an artery. One wrong move would end this. "Do it," her sister whispered. "Prove you're still one of us. Kill to protect. Destroy to survive." Nira's hand shook. The blade pressed harder against skin that felt exactly like her own. Then she stepped back. "No. You don't get to make me into a killer to prove a point. Then you've already lost. Because when the next crisis comes, when the next threat emerges, you'll hesitate again. And hesitation gets people killed. Maybe, but killing you gets me nothing except more blood on my hands." Nira looked at Draven. "Take her. Imprison her. Let her stand trial for fraud and conspiracy. Do it legally." Her sister laughed. "Legal? In a kingdom where the king's word is law. You think that's justice?" "I think it's better than murder on a rooftop because we can't imagine any other solution." Draven moved to restrain her, but the sister was already backing toward the edge. "You want me to stand trial? Watch the kingdom execute me while you play at being queen? No thanks." "Don't," Nira started. Her sister stepped backward off the roof. Nira lunged but caught only air. She looked over the edge expecting to see a body on the stones below. Nothing. Just darkness and the sound of someone running through shadows that swallowed them whole. "She planned an escape route," Draven said. "Of course she did." The shadow hand was already moving toward a different exit. "This has been illuminating. I look forward to seeing which of you survives what comes next." "Wait," Nira called. "The contract is void. I told you. No payment, no death, no obligation." She paused at the doorway. "But a piece of professional advice. Your sister isn't wrong about hesitation. Next time someone threatens what you care about, the moral high ground won't protect you. Choose faster, kill cleaner, or someone else will make the choice for you." Then she was gone, and Nira and Draven stood alone on a rooftop under stars that seemed to judge them for being stupid enough to survive. "Your sister," Draven said carefully. "She's alive. And she'll come back. This isn't over." "No, it's not." He looked at her, really looked, and his face was unreadable. "You had her, blade to her throat, perfect position, and you let her go. I'm not executing family on rooftops. Even family that's trying to destroy everything you're trying to build, especially then, because if I kill her, I prove she's right. That violence is the only language power understands. That mercy is just weakness wearing a crown. And if she kills someone because you hesitated?" The question landed like a blade between ribs. "Then I'll live with that. But I won't live with becoming her." Draven pulled her close, and she felt him shaking. Not fear. Relief mixed with exhaustion, mixed with something that might have been respect or might have been despair. "You're going to get us both killed with that kind of thinking."
Probably. But we'll die trying to be better instead of dying trying to be strong. Those aren't mutually exclusive. In this kingdom they have been. Maybe it's time to change that. They descended from the rooftop in silence, but the silence felt different now. Heavier. Like they'd both crossed a line they couldn't uncross, and were only beginning to understand what that meant. The guards outside the tower cell were unconscious. Not dead, Nira checked, just drugged, or knocked out with professional precision. Her sister's work, probably, creating chaos on her exit. Inside, the room felt smaller than before. Nira sat on the stone floor and let herself shake. "I have a sister," she said to the darkness, "and she's trying to destroy everything." "You have a sister who's already tried once and will try again." Draven sat beside her. "And now she knows you won't kill her, which makes you predictable, which makes you vulnerable. What would you have done if it was your family?" "I don't have family. I made sure of that years ago. Too easy to use as leverage." "That's not the same as not having them." "It is when they're all dead." His voice was flat. "My father tried to use me as a weapon to reclaim territories he'd lost. When I refused, he tried to have me killed. I defended myself. The defense was permanent, so I understand what it's like to have family that's also your enemy." "And you think I should have killed her?" "I think you should have made a choice you could live with. Whether that's killing her or letting her go is irrelevant. What matters is that next time you'll hesitate again, and hesitation is what she's counting on." Nira's hands were still shaking. "I'm not a killer." "You've killed before. You admitted it in front of the entire court. Soldiers, in combat, not my sister on a rooftop because she's inconvenient. She's not inconvenient, she's dangerous. And the longer she's alive, the more people will die in her crusade to burn everything down. Then we'll stop her, together, legally, the right way." Draven laughed, bitter and tired. "There is no right way. There's just the way that keeps the most people alive. And sometimes that means making choices that haunt you forever." "Have you made choices that haunt you?" "Every single day. The executions, the compromises, the people I've sacrificed to maintain stability. I tell myself it's necessary, that the alternative is chaos. But late at night, when I can't sleep, I wonder if I'm just a tyrant who's gotten very good at justifying cruelty." The honesty hit harder than any accusation, because this was the king stripped of performance, just a man who'd built an empire and couldn't remember why he'd wanted it. "What happens now?" Nira asked. "Now we prepare for war. Your sister won't stop. The North is already moving. And every enemy I've ever made is going to see this moment as weakness and test whether I'm still strong enough to crush them. And the wedding? Happens as planned, in 6 days. We need the stability it provides even more now." He stood, offered his hand. "But first, we need to survive tonight, because your sister didn't drug those guards for fun. She's planning something." The explosion came from below, not close. Distant enough that the sound was muffled, but close enough that the floor shook and dust rained from the ceiling. Draven was moving before the sound fully registered, pulling Nira toward the door. The corridor outside was chaos, smoke, screaming, guards running toward the blast site. "The throne room!" someone shouted. "They hit the throne room!" Draven's face went white. "Soren, Castellan, half my advisors were meeting there tonight." They ran through corridors thick with smoke, past bodies, some moving, some not, until they reached the great hall. The doors had been blown inward, hinges torn from stone, and beyond them was devastation. The throne itself was intact, but everything around it was rubble. Bodies lay scattered, bleeding, some trying to crawl toward exits. And in the center of it all, written in what looked like blood or paint on the floor, was a message. "You chose wrong, sister. Now watch what choosing costs." Draven was already moving, checking bodies, calling for medics, trying to bring order to chaos. Nira stood frozen, staring at the message that felt like a knife in her chest. She'd let her sister go, chosen mercy over certainty. And within hours, that choice had killed people. Lord Castellan was alive, barely, trapped under rubble. Soren was unconscious, but breathing. But the Eastern advisor, the one who'd argued for peace with the Northern territories, was dead, eyes open, staring at nothing. 3 guards. 2 servants who'd been cleaning. A minister whose name Nira didn't know. All dead because she'd hesitated. Draven returned to her side, his hands covered in blood from pulling people from wreckage. "This wasn't your fault. She did this because I let her go. She did this because she's a fanatic who thinks destruction equals progress. You're not responsible for her choices." "I had her, blade to her throat.
and I chose mercy. And that's why I'm still trying to protect you instead of locking you in a cell. He gripped her shoulders. Listen to me. Your sister is counting on you blaming yourself, counting on you becoming so paralyzed by guilt that you can't function. Don't give her that. People are dead because I wasn't willing to kill one person. People are dead because someone set off a bomb. That's on her, not you. But Naira couldn't unhear the Shadow Hand's words. Next time, choose faster, kill cleaner, or someone else will make the choice for you. She'd chosen mercy, and mercy had cost innocent lives. The realization settled into her bones like ice. In this world, in this kingdom, maybe idealism was just another word for weakness. Maybe her sister was right about violence being the only language power understood. Maybe choosing to be better meant watching people die while you held the moral high ground. Draven was organizing rescue efforts, his voice cutting through chaos with the kind of authority that made people obey without thinking. And Naira stood in the wreckage of her choice, feeling something inside her crack that might never heal. Mistress Karen appeared from the smoke, her face ash pale. The North Tower is secure, the wedding wing is intact, but the Western Barracks took damage. We have wounded everywhere. Prioritize the guards, Draven ordered. Then servants, then nobility. I want casualty counts in an hour. Sire, Karen hesitated. The court is demanding a response. They're saying this proves the bride is a security risk, that her presence has brought nothing but chaos. The court can demand whatever it wants. The wedding proceeds as planned. Your Majesty, with respect, 6 days might not be enough time to stabilize. Then we don't stabilize. We endure. We survive. And we show everyone watching that terrorism doesn't change policy. His eyes found Nira. Get her somewhere safe. Double the guard. I want eyes on her every second. As Karen led her away, Naira looked back at the destruction, at the bodies being carried out, at the king trying to hold his kingdom together with nothing but will and violence. And she made a decision. Next time she faced her sister, there would be no hesitation, no mercy, no choice except the one that kept the most people alive. Even if that choice meant becoming exactly what she'd fought against. The cell they put her in was different this time, still secure, still guarded, but now it felt less like protection and more like quarantine, keeping the disease contained before it infected everything else. Lyra came at dawn with food Naira couldn't eat. Everyone's scared, the girl whispered. They're saying you brought this, that your sister is just the beginning, that the kingdom won't survive your wedding. They might be right. What are you going to do? Naira looked at her hands. They should have been shaking, should have shown some sign of the guilt and horror churning in her gut. But they were steady, which somehow made it worse. I'm going to stop her, whatever it takes, even if it means, even then. Lyra's eyes filled with tears. You're changing, becoming harder. I can see it. Good. Hard is what this place needs. Soft gets people killed. But if you become like them, what's the point? The question hung in the air like an accusation. Nira didn't have an answer. 3 days until the wedding. 3 days to prepare for a ceremony that might be the kingdom's salvation or its funeral. 3 days to decide whether mercy was strength or suicide. And somewhere in the capital, her sister was planning the next move, counting on Naira to hesitate again, to choose idealism over survival. But Naira had seen what idealism cost, had counted the bodies, had watched innocent people die while she stood on moral high ground that turned out to be nothing but a killing floor with a better view. Next time would be different. Next time she wouldn't. 2 days before the wedding, Naira stopped sleeping. Not because she couldn't, because every time she closed her eyes, she saw the bodies in the throne room. The minister's empty stare. The servant girl who'd been carrying flowers, crushed under rubble with petals scattered around her like a funeral she'd never get. Sleep meant dreaming, and dreaming meant reliving the moment she'd chosen mercy and people had paid the price. So she stayed awake, trained instead. The cell had become her war room. She'd demanded weapons from guards, too afraid to refuse, and now she moved through forms that surfaced from buried memory. Strike patterns, defensive sequences, killing techniques taught by instructors whose faces she still couldn't remember, but whose voices echoed with each movement. Her sister's voice. Faster, you're telegraphing, dead before the blade even moves. Her own voice, younger, frustrated. I can't do it. Can't or won't. There's a difference, and only one of them gets you killed. The memory sharpened with each repetition until Nira could almost see the training yard, feel the sun on her neck, hear other children drilling nearby. The resistance hadn't just recruited fighters. They'd raised them. turned orphans and runaways into weapons before those weapons were old enough to understand what they were becoming. She and her sister had been 7 when the training started, 15 when the purge came. The door opened. Draven entered without knocking, and Nyra didn't stop moving, just adjusted her pattern to account for his presence, blade whistling through air where his throat would be if he'd been an enemy. "You'll exhaust yourself before the wedding," he said. "Better exhausted than slow." She switched forms, muscle memory flowing like water. "My sister won't be slow. Your sister will be careful. The bombing bought her time to regroup, but she has to know we're expecting her next move." "Then she'll make a move we're not expecting." Nyra stopped finally, breathing hard. "She's always been smarter than me, better at planning. I was the fighter. She was the thinker. That's why this whole trap worked. She knew exactly how I'd react to every situation because she helped train those reactions into me." Draven moved closer, studying her face. "You're remembering. Pieces, fragments, gets clearer every time I move like this." She touched her temple. "It's like the trauma locked everything away, and now the violence is bringing it back. I remember us as children. Remember instructors drilling us until we couldn't stand. Remember—" She stopped, because the next memory was fire and screaming, and she wasn't ready to face that yet. "Remember what?" Draven's voice was gentle in a way that didn't match the king she'd met 2 weeks ago. "The day it ended, when the Crown forces came. We were supposed to evacuate together, but I got separated in the chaos. Took a rifle butt to the head trying to reach her. Woke up 3 days later in a field hospital with no memory and a stranger telling me everyone I knew was dead." Nyra's hands shook. She must have thought I died too. Must have spent years believing I was gone. And then she found me, and instead of reunion, she saw an opportunity. Or she's been planning this since the moment she realized you survived. Using you was always the endgame. Either way, she's coming for the wedding. That's when she'll strike. Maximum chaos, maximum witnesses, maximum damage when it all falls apart. "I know, which is why the wedding is now a trap." Draven pulled out architectural plans, spread them across the cell floor. "We fortified every entrance, positioned archers on every rooftop, guards in civilian clothes throughout the crowd. And you," he tapped the center of the diagram, "will be wearing armor under your dress and carrying at least 3 concealed weapons. You're turning a wedding into a battlefield. I'm making sure we survive to have the wedding. There's a difference." Nyra studied the plans. They were good. Thorough. The kind of security that should stop any attack. But her sister had spent 5 years planning this, and 5 years of preparation wouldn't be undone by 2 days of fortification. "She won't attack during the ceremony," Nyra said slowly. "Too many guards. Too much security. She'll hit before or after, when we're moving between locations, when the guard rotation changes. Then we don't move. The ceremony happens in the throne room. We fortify it completely. No one in or out until it's over. And trap ourselves inside if she finds a way to breach it? No, we need mobility. Need to be able to respond when she makes her move." They argued strategy until dawn, neither willing to concede, both knowing that one wrong decision would get people killed. Finally, Draven rolled up the plans with the kind of controlled frustration that said he wanted to break something but wouldn't. "You're impossible to protect when you keep rejecting protection. You're impossible to trust when you think control equals safety. Then what do you suggest? We wing it and hope your sister makes a mistake? I suggest we give her what she wants." The words hung in the air like a detonation waiting to happen. Draven's eyes narrowed. "Explain." "She wants chaos, wants the kingdom to collapse, wants me dead or discredited and you destroyed." Nyra moved to the window, looked out at the capital waking below. "So we give her a target she can't resist. Make me vulnerable. Draw her out." "Absolutely not. It's the only way to end this. She's too smart to fall for conventional traps. But if I'm exposed, if she has a clean shot at finishing what she started, she'll take it. And when she does, we'll be ready." "Ready to watch you die?" "No, find another plan." "There is no other plan. Every defense we build, she'll find a way around because she knows how I think. But if I'm the bait, if she has to come to me, then we control the engagement." Draven grabbed her shoulders, spun her to face him. "You're talking about suicide. I'm talking about ending this before more innocent people die." Nyra met his eyes. "She'll keep hitting soft targets, servants, guards, people who can't defend themselves. Unless we give her a hard target, she wants more than chaos. And that target is you. That target is me finally choosing to fight instead of running. to face what I forgot instead of letting it control me from the shadows. His grip tightened. If you die, this was all for nothing. The marriage, the alliance, the attempt to prove mercy works. Gone. Replaced by exactly the chaos your sister wants. And if I live in a cage to avoid her, she still wins. Because she's turned me into a prisoner of my own fear. At least this way, I'm choosing the terms. The terms are your death. Or hers. Or both of us finally ending this cycle before it consumes everything. Nira pulled free from his grip. I'm doing this, Draven, with your permission or without it. The only question is whether you're helping or stopping me. The silence stretched. Outside, bells rang marking morning prayers, indifferent to the war being waged in palace cells. Finally, Draven exhaled slowly. If we're doing this, we do it right. You're not walking into an ambush without backup. Backup defeats the purpose. She needs to think I'm alone. Then backup that looks like you're alone. Soren can position snipers. I can have guards in civilian clothes throughout the route, but you're not facing her without support. And when she realizes it's a trap and disappears for another 5 years, collecting bodies along the way, then we hunt her down and end it properly. But we don't hand her your life on a silver platter. They were still arguing when Soren arrived with news that made the argument irrelevant. The Northern Territories have mobilized, he said without preamble. 3 lords are marching toward the capital with combined forces. They're calling it a rescue mission, claiming the king is holding their envoy prisoner and they're coming to retrieve her. Draven's face went blank. How many? 2,000 soldiers, maybe more. They'll be here in 4 days. After the wedding. Conveniently, yes. Which means your sister either coordinated with them, or they're all playing into the same chaos she's creating. Soren looked at Nira. Either way, you've become the excuse for civil war. The North thinks you're a hostage. The court thinks you're a traitor, and your sister is somewhere laughing at both. Nira felt the trap close completely. If the wedding happens, the North sees it as proof I'm complicit. They attack. If the wedding is cancelled, Draven looks weak. The court fractures. Either way, the kingdom tears itself apart. Unless, Draven said quietly, we finish this before the Northern forces arrive. 4 days. We have 4 days to find your sister, end the threat, and prove to the North that you're here by choice. And how do we prove that when they're already marching? We invite them to the wedding. Both Nira and Soren stared at him. You want to invite an invading army to your wedding, Soren said flatly. I want to invite the Northern Lords to witness that their envoy is neither hostage nor traitor. Let them see the ceremony. Let them watch Nira make her choice publicly. And let them understand that attacking after that means declaring war on a unified kingdom instead of rescuing a damsel. They'll never accept. They're already committed to the march. Then we make them an offer they can't refuse. Safe passage, honored guests, a seat at the table when we negotiate the new treaties that make this marriage meaningful. Draven's eyes were ice. And if they refuse, we meet them on the field and remind them why they bent knee in the first place. Nira's mind raced through implications. My sister will use their arrival as cover, strike during the chaos when everyone's watching the Northern Lords instead of internal threats. Probably. Which is why we need to draw her out before they arrive. Today. Tomorrow at the latest. Draven turned to Soren. Send word to the Northern Lords, invitation to the wedding, full honors. Make it clear that refusing means we interpret their march as an invasion. And if they accept and your bride's sister kills you in front of them, then Nira becomes queen of a fractured kingdom, and we hope she's learned enough in 2 weeks to hold it together. He looked at Nira. No pressure. After Soren left, Nira and Draven stood in the cell that had become their war room, and the weight of what they were attempting settled like lead. This is insane, Nira said. This is the only move that doesn't guarantee disaster. Draven moved to the plans again. Your sister wants you vulnerable. The Northern Lords want you rescued. The court wants you gone. We give everyone what they want and use it to force a resolution. By making me bait. By making you the choice everyone has to respond to. Stay or go. Fight or flee. Live or die. All of it comes down to you. No. Comes down to us. Nira joined him at the plans. You're gambling your kingdom on this working. That makes it our choice, not just mine. His hand found hers among the scattered parchment. I'm gambling my kingdom on you. There's a difference. Is there? Because from where I'm standing, they're the same thing. Then we'd better make sure we're both right. They planned through the morning. Contingencies layered on contingencies, each scenario more desperate than the last. By noon, they had something that might work or might get them both killed. The wedding would proceed as scheduled. The Northern Lords would be invited as witnesses, and Naira would take a public walk through the capital the day before the ceremony. Visible, vulnerable, the perfect target for a sister who couldn't resist proving a point. "She'll know it's a trap," Nira said again, "and she'll take the bait anyway, because her whole plan requires you dead or discredited before the wedding. This is her last chance." Draven traced the route on the map. "You'll have protection you can't see. Soren's best, but they won't intervene unless she makes a move. And when she does? Then you do what you should have done on that rooftop. You end it." The words were simple. The implication was devastating. Nira looked at her hands, scarred from training, steady despite everything. "I've never killed someone in cold blood, always in combat, always in the moment. This will be combat, just slower, more intimate, more final." He met her eyes. "Can you do it? Can I kill my sister to save a kingdom I barely understand from a war I didn't start?" Naira's laugh was bitter. "I don't know. Ask me after it's over. I'm asking now, because if you hesitate, if you can't pull the trigger when it matters, we need a different plan." "There is no different plan. This is it. Win or watch everything burn. Then don't hesitate." The day before the wedding came too fast and too slow. Nira dressed in clothes designed to look casual, but hide weapons, blade at her thigh, poison needle in her sleeve, throwing knife in her boot. The armor under her dress was light, flexible, probably wouldn't stop a determined blade, but might slow it enough to matter. Mistress Karen helped with the final touches, her hands steady despite the fear in her eyes. "Your bait," she said quietly. "I'm a woman taking a walk through her future kingdom. Your bait, and we both know it." Karen adjusted the collar to hide the armor line. "Your sister will come. She has to. This is her last chance before you become untouchable." "I'm never untouchable. That's the whole problem." "No. The problem is that you care too much. About doing the right thing. About proving mercy works. About saving people who'd happily watch you burn if it served their interests." Karen's voice dropped. "Stop caring, just for today. Be the weapon your sister thinks you are and survive. And tomorrow? Tomorrow you can go back to trying to change the world. But today, just don't die." The walk began at noon. The route was simple, from the palace through the main square to the temple where the wedding would be held. A tradition, Draven had explained, so the people could see their future queen and offer blessings. In reality, it was a gauntlet designed to draw out threats. The crowd was massive, thousands lined the streets, held back by guards in ceremonial armor that hid combat readiness. Naira walked slowly, waving when appropriate, smiling when necessary, every sense screaming warnings. She was halfway through the square when she felt it, eyes on her that weren't just curious, focused, hunting. Her sister was here. Naira's hand drifted toward her concealed blade. The crowd pressed closer, and she realized the genius of the trap her sister had built. Hundreds of people, any of whom could be an assassin. Any shout could be cover for a knife. Any stumble could be the moment before death. "Your Majesty looks beautiful," someone called. Nira smiled, nodded, kept moving. 3 more blocks to the temple. 3 more blocks of being a target without knowing when the shot would come. A child broke through the guards, running toward her with flowers. Nira's instincts screamed danger, but she accepted them anyway because refusing would cause panic. The girl couldn't have been more than 6, gap-toothed and shy, and when Nira took the bouquet, she saw the note hidden among the stems. "Rooftop, southeast corner. Come alone or I start killing civilians." Her sister's handwriting, unmistakable. Naira's eyes found the rooftop. A shadow moved, too quick to be wind, and in that shadow, she knew her sister waited with a rifle or a bomb or whatever tool would cause maximum chaos. The guards hadn't seen the note. The crowd kept pressing, and Naira had seconds to decide whether to follow orders designed to keep her safe or follow instinct that said the only way to end this was to face it directly. She made the choice that would haunt her regardless of outcome. "I need to use the temple facilities," she told the nearest guard. "Women's issue. Private." The guard's face went carefully blank. "Your Majesty, we can arrange now unless you want a very public problem." Biological needs were the one area where protocol surrendered to practicality. The guards formed a tighter perimeter around her as they diverted toward the temple's side entrance. Once inside, Naira moved fast. Through corridors meant for clergy, upstairs meant for maintenance, onto the roof that connected the temple to the adjacent buildings. The guard following her was young, nervous, doing his job. She hated what came next. I'm sorry, she said, and hit him hard enough to knock him unconscious. He'd wake with a headache and probably get demoted, but he'd live. That was more than she could promise herself. The southeast rooftop was 3 buildings away. Naira ran across tiles still slick from morning rain, jumped gaps that would break bones if she missed, moved with speed born from training that was finally, fully remembered. Her sister waited exactly where the note had indicated, not hiding, not preparing for ambush, just standing at the edge, like someone enjoying the view, rifle propped against the parapet, like an afterthought. You came alone, her sister said without turning. Good, you're finally learning. Learning what? How to walk into traps? Naira's hand found her blade. Learning that sometimes the only way forward is direct confrontation. No guards, no backup. Just us, like it should have been from the start. Now she turned, and her smile was sad. I wasn't sure you'd remember the training. The real training, not the basics everyone got. The lessons about when to follow orders and when to make your own path. Is that what you're doing? Making your own path by bombing innocent people? I'm finishing what we started. What you would have helped finish if you hadn't forgotten who you were. She moved away from the rifle, deliberately, showing she wasn't reaching for it. Do you remember them yet? Our parents? The question hit like a blade. No. Liar. You remember enough. Father was resistance leadership. Mother ran intelligence. They were good people trying to fix a broken system, and Draven Kale's forces burned them alive when the purge came. You and I watched from hiding, heard them screaming, smelled their skin burning. Her voice was absolutely flat. You remember that. I can see it in your eyes. And Naira did. The memory surfaced like drowning in reverse, horrible clarity of a moment she'd spent 5 years trying to forget. The house burning, her mother's voice screaming for them to run, her father's silhouette in flames, still fighting, still trying to buy them time. They died fighting tyranny, her sister continued, died believing their children would finish the work. And you forgot them. Forgot us, forgot everything that mattered. I didn't choose to forget. No. But you chose not to remember. Chose to work for Thane. Chose to marry the man whose forces killed our family. Chose comfort over justice. Her sister's hand moved toward the rifle, casual, testing. So I'm going to give you one last choice. Walk away, right now. Leave the city. Disappear. I'll let you live if you stop helping him. In exchange for what? In exchange for letting me finish this. Kill Draven. Watch the kingdom fracture. Build something new from the ashes that doesn't require an Iron King crushing everyone who questions him. Nira's blade cleared its sheath. I can't do that. Can't or won't. Both. Because you're wrong. Killing him doesn't fix the system. It just creates a power vacuum that'll be filled by whoever's most ruthless. Probably you. And then you'll become exactly what you're fighting against. I'm nothing like him. You're exactly like him. You just haven't built your empire yet. Nira moved closer, blade ready. And I'm not letting you use our parents' deaths as an excuse to become a tyrant. Her sister's laugh was sharp. Look at you, defending the man who killed our family. They'd be so proud. They'd be devastated that their daughter became a terrorist who kills servants and guards to prove a point. And they'd be ashamed that their other daughter forgot them to play queen. They moved simultaneously. Her sister grabbed the rifle. Naira threw her blade. The knife caught the rifle barrel, knocked it aside, sent the shot wild. Then they crashed together like mirrors shattering. Each strike met with a counter, each attack anticipated and reversed. They fought the way they'd been trained, fast, brutal, efficient. No wasted movement, no hesitation. Just 2 weapons forged in the same fire trying to destroy each other. Naira's sister was faster, sharper. 5 years of practice against Naira's 2 weeks of remembering. But Naira was desperate in a way her sister wasn't. Fighting for a kingdom she barely understood, and a king she'd barely known, and a future that probably wouldn't work but deserved the chance to fail honestly. The fight took them across the rooftop. Naira's armor caught a blade meant for her ribs. Her sister's reflexes dodged the poisoned needle that would have ended this instantly. They traded cuts and bruises and blood until both were breathing hard. Both bleeding, both realizing this would only end when one of them couldn't get up. You've gotten better, her sister gasped. You've gotten predictable, Naira lied. Every move her sister made was a surprise, improvised, impossible to anticipate. They circled each other like wolves, looking for the opening that would end this. Last chance, her sister said. Walk away. Live. Be whoever you want to be without this hanging over you. I am who I want to be, someone trying to prove mercy isn't weakness. Then you'll die proving nothing. Her sister moved, fast, committed, the kind of attack that left no room for retreat. Naira had one moment to decide. Defend and stay in the fight, or counter and risk everything. She chose to counter. Her blade found her sister's side. Not deep enough to kill instantly, but enough to slow her, hurt her, make the next exchange uneven. Her sister's knife found Naira's shoulder, through the armor, into muscle, pain so sharp it whited out vision for a second. They fell apart, both wounded, both knowing the next exchange would be final. You actually did it, her sister said, touching the wound. You chose him over me. I chose stopping you over letting more innocent people die. Same thing from where I'm bleeding. Below, shouts. The guards had found the unconscious soldier and were converging on their position. In minutes, the roof would be swarming with people who'd arrest them both, or kill them both, or do whatever Draven had ordered for this exact scenario. We're out of time, Naira said. We've always been out of time. That's the whole problem. Her sister moved toward the edge. Next time you see me, one of us dies. No more mercy, no more chances. Just ending this the only way it can end. Then I'll be ready. No, you won't, because you still think you can save everyone. And that's the weakness I'm going to use to kill you. She stepped onto the ledge. See you at the wedding, sister. Try to look surprised when I crash it. Then she jumped. Naira lunged to the edge, expecting to see a body on the street below. Instead, she saw her sister catching a rope rigged between buildings, swinging to the next rooftop, disappearing into the labyrinth of the Capitol like smoke dissolving into air. Guards burst onto the roof seconds later, weapons drawn, finding Naira bleeding and alone. Where is she? Soren demanded. Gone. Again. Naira touched her shoulder, felt blood warm and slick. She'll be at the wedding. She as good as promised. Then we cancel. Move the ceremony, change everything. No. Naira's voice was iron. We do it exactly as planned. She wants a confrontation, we give her one, but this time on our terms with everyone watching, and nobody leaves until this ends. Draven appeared, took one look at her wound, and his face went dark with fury. You were supposed to signal if she approached. She gave me a choice. Follow the plan or save civilians. I chose civilians. You chose to almost get killed. I chose to wound her, to slow her down, to prove I can face her without freezing. Naira met his eyes. And I chose to come back instead of running. That has to count for something. His jaw worked. Then he pulled her close, careful of her injury, and she felt him shaking. Don't do that again. Don't make me watch you bleed and wonder if you're going to survive. Can't promise that. Tomorrow's going to be worse. Then we'd better make sure we're both still standing when it's over. They descended from the rooftop together, and the city below had no idea that tomorrow's wedding would either save the kingdom or bury it. The northern lords arrived at sunset, 3 of them riding at the head of 2,000 soldiers who made camp outside the city walls like an invading force that had suddenly remembered to be diplomatic. Lord Garrett, Lord Voss, no relation to Naira despite the name, and Lady Thornfield, each one representing territories that had bent knee to Draven years ago and clearly resented every moment since. The meeting took place in the throne room, still partially ruined from the bombing, which Draven had deliberately left unrepaired. Welcome, he said from his throne, and the word dripped with threat. I'm told you're here to rescue my bride. Lord Garrett stepped forward, old and angry and not remotely intimidated. We're here to verify her safety. Lord Thane's last message suggested she was being held against her will. Lord Thane was dying and paranoid. His message was fiction designed to destabilize alliances. Then let us speak to the girl. Alone. Confirm she's here by choice. You'll speak to her tomorrow, at the wedding, where everyone can witness her making that choice publicly. That's not acceptable. Draven stood, and the room temperature seemed to drop. Then leave. March your army home. Pray I forget this insult before I decide to remind you why the Northern Territories bent knee in the first place. Lady Thornfield's voice cut through the tension like a blade. Or you could let us speak to her now, satisfy our concerns, and we attend your wedding as honored guests instead of suspicious witnesses. Your choice, Your Majesty. The political calculation was obvious. Refuse and look like he had something to hide. Agree and risk them convincing Naira to leave. Either way, the Northern Lords were forcing a confrontation. 5 minutes, Draven said finally, in my presence. Say whatever you need to say. Then you attend the wedding tomorrow, or you leave my city forever." They brought Naira in still bandaged from the rooftop fight. She'd refused a healer's attention beyond basic cleaning, wanted the wound visible, wanted everyone to see she'd already paid in blood for her choices. Lord Garrett's face softened when he saw her. "Child, what has he done to you?"
"Nothing. This is from someone else's violence, not his." "Then leave with us. Now. We'll protect you." "I don't need protecting from him. I need help stopping my sister from destroying everything." Confusion rippled through the northern delegation. Lady Thornfield leaned forward. "Sister?" Thane's message said nothing about a sister, because Thane didn't know. Nobody did until she revealed herself. Naira's voice was steady despite the pain. "She's been orchestrating everything, the bombing, the attacks, the message that brought you here. She wants this kingdom to tear itself apart, and you marching here with an army is exactly what she needs to make that happen." "Why should we believe you?" Lord Voss's skepticism was obvious. "Because tomorrow she's going to try to kill me or him or both of us during the wedding, and when she does, you'll have a choice. Help us stop her and prove this alliance is real, or stand back and watch the kingdom collapse. Either way, you'll be choosing which North you want to rule, one that's part of a stable kingdom, or one that's scrambling to survive a civil war." Lord Garrett's eyes narrowed. "You're asking us to help defend the man who conquered our territories." "I'm asking you to help defend the possibility that those territories can be part of something better, that conquest can become cooperation, that we can build a kingdom where mercy isn't weakness and strength doesn't require constant violence." She met his gaze. "Or you can walk away and hope the chaos that follows doesn't swallow you too." The silence stretched. Finally, Lady Thornfield spoke. "We'll attend the wedding. We'll watch. And if this sister of yours makes an appearance, we'll consider where our interests truly lie. That's all I can ask." After the Northern Lords left, Draven pulled Naira aside. "You just bet the kingdom on them choosing correctly. I bet the kingdom on showing them there's a choice. Whether they make the right one is up to them. And if they don't, then tomorrow we die fighting for something that mattered instead of living in a kingdom held together by fear." That's remarkably optimistic for someone who almost died today. That's what almost dying teaches you. Either everything matters or nothing does. I'm choosing everything. He kissed her then, desperate, furious, tender, like someone trying to memorize a moment before it dissolved into violence. And Naira kissed back because tomorrow might be the last time either of them had the chance. The night before the wedding, Naira couldn't sleep again. She stood at the window watching the Northern Army's campfires and thought about all the ways tomorrow could go wrong. Her sister crashing the ceremony, the Northern Lords deciding to invade instead of help, the court staging a coup, the common people rioting, or just simple failure, her hesitating at the wrong moment and everyone paying the price. Draven joined her at the window. Tomorrow might be the worst day of our lives. Or the best, depending on whether we survive it. Not exactly the wedding vows I'd hoped for. What did you hope for? Honestly, I didn't. Hope, I mean. I've spent 15 years expecting the worst and being proven right so often that hoping for better felt like setting myself up for disappointment. He took her hand. But then you walked into my throne room and refused to be afraid, and for the first time in longer than I can remember, I thought maybe the worst wasn't inevitable. And now? Now I think we're both insane for trying this, but I'd rather be insane with you than certain and alone. They stood together watching the fires until dawn broke like a promise or a threat. The wedding morning came with blood-red skies. Naira dressed in armor disguised as a wedding gown, white silk over steel mesh, beauty wrapped around survival. The seamstresses had worked through the night creating something that looked like tradition and functioned like a fortress. Weapons were built into the design, blades in the sleeves, poison in the jewelry, throwing stars hidden in the veil. "You look like war pretending to be a bride," Karen said. "That's exactly what I am." The ceremony was set for noon in the throne room, now hastily repaired and fortified. Every entrance guarded, every window covered, the Northern Lords seated in positions of honor where they could witness everything and intervene in nothing. The court assembled with the enthusiasm of people attending a funeral they'd orchestrated. Whispers followed Naira's entrance like knives waiting to strike. She walked alone down the aisle, no family to give her away, no friends to stand witness, just a woman choosing her future in front of everyone who wanted that future to fail. Draven waited at the altar in formal armor, every inch the Alpha King except for his eyes, which held something that might have been fear or might have been hope. The officiant began the ceremony with words about unity and strength and the bonds that held kingdoms together.
Naira heard none of it. Her eyes scanned the room, looking for her sister, knowing she was here, feeling the weight of eyes that wanted her dead. The vows came. Draven spoke his clearly, every word a promise and a challenge. Naira repeated them, and with each syllable she felt the trap her sister had built tighten around them all. "If anyone objects to this union," the officiant intoned, "speak now or—" The explosion shook the throne room. Not inside. Outside. Close enough to rattle windows and send guards scrambling. Screams from the courtyard, smoke billowing through ventilation, and through it all, a voice over the chaos, amplified somehow, carrying across the palace. Her sister's voice. "Hello, brother-in-law." Surprise. Draven's hand found his blade. "She's attacking the crowd." "No." Nira was already moving. "She's creating a diversion, making us choose between completing the ceremony or saving civilians." "Then we save civilians." "And prove she can disrupt anything by threatening innocents? No. We finish this. Then we end her." She grabbed the officiant. "Complete the ceremony. Now. Fast." The man stammered through the final words, declared them married while explosions echoed outside and guards poured toward the threat. Naira barely heard the declaration. She was too busy scanning the room, waiting for her sister to appear, knowing the real attack was still coming. It came from above. The ceiling shattered as something crashed through. Not a bomb, just a body dropping on a rope, landing in the center of the aisle with inhuman grace. Her sister, dressed in black, armed to the teeth, smiling like someone who'd just won an argument nobody knew they were having. "Congratulations," she said. "Now let's see if your marriage lasts longer than the next 5 minutes." She raised a device, small, innocent-looking. "I have bombs placed throughout the palace. Servants' quarters, guard barracks, the Northern Army's camp, all of them rigged to blow unless I receive a signal every 60 seconds from this." She showed the mechanism. "If I die, everyone dies. If you arrest me, everyone dies. If you even annoy me too much, everyone dies." Draven's voice was ice. "What do you want?" "I want my sister to make a choice. Right here. Right now. In front of everyone." She looked at Naira. "Annul the marriage. Walk away with me. Help me build something better from the ashes of this kingdom. Or stay. And watch me burn it down around you with everyone you're trying to save inside." The throne room went absolutely silent. Nira's hand found her concealed blade. "You're bluffing. You don't have bombs." "Don't I? Want to test that theory? Because I'll start with the servants' quarters. 300 people, mostly children. See how your mercy holds up when pieces of them start raining from the sky." "You wouldn't." "I would. I have. I will again, because unlike you, I'm willing to pay the price for change, even if that price is innocent blood." Her sister's smile was terrible. "So choose, Naira. Save the kingdom by leaving it, or destroy it by staying. You have 60 seconds to decide." She held up the device. A timer counted down. 59, 58, 57. And Naira realized this was it. The moment her sister had been building towards since the beginning. Not killing Draven, not destroying the palace, but forcing Naira to choose between mercy and survival, between staying and running, between the person she'd been and the person she was becoming. The timer hit 50, and everyone in the room held their breath, waiting to see which woman would break first. Naira looked at Draven, at the Northern Lords, at the court who wanted her gone, at the world her sister wanted to burn. Then she looked at her sister, the mirror of everything she might have become if she hadn't forgotten, if she'd spent 5 years nursing rage instead of rebuilding. "No," Nira said. "No what?" "No to all of it. Your choice. Your bombs. Your demand that I pick between you and them." She stepped forward, hands empty, showing she wasn't reaching for weapons. "You want me to choose?" "I choose neither. I choose to call your bluff and trust that you're still human enough not to murder 300 children to prove a point." Her sister's face went blank. "You think I'm bluffing?" "I think you're desperate. I think you've spent 5 years planning revenge and realized at the last second that revenge is hollow, that killing Draven won't bring back our parents, that destroying this kingdom won't rebuild what we lost." Nira kept walking forward. "I think you want me to stop you, to give you an excuse to not push that button, to prove that our family meant more than dying for a cause that died with them." The timer hit 30. "Stop walking," her sister said. Naira didn't stop. 20. "I'll do it. I swear I'll push this button." 15. "Then push it. Prove you're willing to be the monster this kingdom needs to fear. Kill everyone here and live with it. Become exactly what you're fighting against." 10, her sister's hand shook. You're calling my bluff. I'm trusting my sister, the one who held my hand in training, who shared secrets in the dark, who protected me when the soldiers came. Naira reached for the device. I'm trusting that she's still in there somewhere beneath the rage. 5. Their hands touched the device together. 4. I can't let you stay with him, her sister whispered. 3. And I can't let you destroy everything to save me from a choice I've already made. 2. Then we're both lost. 1. The device went dark. No explosion, no signals, no timer. Just silence, and a sister whose face was crumbling like a wall that couldn't hold anymore. There were no bombs, Nira said softly. There were. I just couldn't. Her sister's voice broke. I couldn't push it, couldn't do it, couldn't kill all those people to prove I was willing to pay the price. She looked at the useless device. You were right. I'm desperate, and I wanted you to stop me, and I hate you for being brave enough to trust that. Guards were moving in, weapons drawn. Draven raised a hand, stopping them. So what now? He asked quietly. Her sister looked at him with eyes full of everything she'd lost. Now you execute me, publicly. Make an example. Show everyone what happens when you challenge the Alpha King. Or, Naira said, we find a third option. There is no third option. I tried to kill you both, bombed your palace, terrorized your kingdom. You can't let me walk away. No. But we can let you choose. Trial and execution, or exile and disappearance. Leave this kingdom forever. Go somewhere your rage can't hurt anyone. Build a life that isn't revenge. Her sister's laugh was broken. You're offering me mercy after everything. I'm offering you the choice I wish someone had offered our parents. Die for your cause, or live for something better. The throne room was frozen. Everyone watching this impossible negotiation between sisters, between vengeance and mercy, between the kingdom that was and the kingdom that might be. Her sister looked at the device in her hand, at the guards surrounding them, at Naira standing there bleeding and married and offering salvation to someone who tried to destroy everything. I don't deserve this. None of us deserve anything. We just choose what we can live with. And you can live with letting me go? I can live with trying to be better than the cycle that killed our family. Her sister closed her eyes. Exile then. I'll go. Disappear. Become someone else somewhere else. She opened them again. But if I ever hear you're in danger, if this mercy turns into suffering, I'm coming back. And next time I won't hesitate. Fair enough. They stood there, mirror images, one staying, one leaving, both choosing futures that would haunt them. Then her sister handed over the device, let the guards take her weapons, and walked toward the door.